After the amazing success of The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time, Nintendo obviously wanted to follow that up with a sequel. Originally, the plan was to make Ocarina of Time Master Quest, which would be more of a spin-off type game where you play the same dungeons, but they've been tweaked around to make it a different and maybe more challenging experience. But the developer in charge of making it wasn't a fan of the idea because they were so proud of the work they did in Ocarina of Time that they felt it was already as good as it could be, and instead they wanted to make a new Zelda game. And Nintendo agreed to let them do just that under one condition. They only had 1 year to make the game. And at first, that sounds like a recipe for disaster. I mean, nobody likes a rushed game. But by repurposing assets and building upon gameplay mechanics introduced in the previous game, against all odds, the team managed to pull it off, and in less than 1 year, and just 18 months after the first game, The Legend of Zelda: Majora's Mask was released, and it was another massive success. For a game that borrows so much from its predecessor, Majora's Mask is one of the most unique Zelda games ever made. The overall tone and atmosphere of the game is heavier and a bit darker. The addition of the 3-day time cycle opens up a whole new way to experience the story, with many of the side quests having different outcomes based on your actions in prior days. The different masks that you can equip, which were previously just used for a side quest, now give Link a variety of new abilities, which makes the gameplay feel really unique and different. But yet, it still all feels familiar because it complements the classic 3D Zelda gameplay so well. And all that just makes this game an absolutely fantastic sequel that fans are still playing and replaying to this very day. And in today's video, we are going to be 100% completing this game, but we're not stopping at 100%. We're gonna go above and beyond and add some additional challenges using Retro Achievements, a website that adds achievements like you'd find in modern games to all your favorite retro games. There are a total of 96 achievements to collect, and in order to get them all, we're of course gonna have to 100% complete the game, but we'll have additional challenges along the way. Things like defeating bosses with restrictions like not being able to use mask or taking damage, completing the entire game with only 3 heart containers, and our hardest achievement is going to be completing the entire game in only a single 3-day cycle. We're gonna have to fully explore this game and get really good at it in order to get all these achievements, which I am very much looking forward to because I love this game. And after getting all the achievements in Ocarina of Time a few months ago, I've been waiting to take on Majora's Mask. If you're new to the channel, my name's Nostalgic Juice, and I'm on a quest to revisit all the nostalgia games I grew up with and get their retro achievements. So if you like achievement hunting, challenges, and that sort of thing, then make sure you subscribe for more videos just like this. With that said, sit back, grab a snack, and let's begin our journey through The Legend of Zelda: Majora's Mask. The story begins shortly after the events of the last game. Link and Epona are strolling through the Lost Woods on what the game describes as a personal journey in search of a beloved and invaluable friend who we can safely assume is Navi the Fairy. It's never explained exactly why Navi left after the first game, and we don't end up finding any answers here. Instead, we find 2 new fairies who jump scare Epona and cause Link to get thrown off and knocked unconscious. And that's when we get our first encounter with the Skull Kid, who starts looting our body while Epona does absolutely nothing about it. She's probably just getting revenge for how badly I was mispronouncing her name back in my last video. Skull Kid finds our Ocarina of Time and starts playing it so badly that Link wakes up to try to put a stop to it, but he hops on Epona and takes off running. Link tries to hang on, but eventually gets thrown off, so we'll have to continue the chase on foot through the forest. And after doing some sick parkour flips for absolutely no reason, we eventually fall down an abyss, which leads us to the land of Termina. Skull Kid is waiting for us at the bottom and tells us that he got rid of Epona, and if that wasn't bad enough, he then uses the power of his mask to transform us into a Deku Scrub. And now we're stuck down here along with one of his fairies because she decided to stay back to kick us while we're down and got separated from Skull Kid and the other fairy. And somehow that's our fault apparently. Oh, but it's okay because she apologized, so I guess we're just gonna be friends now. Now we have to continue chasing after Skull Kid, and we get our first taste of playing as Deku Link. One of our new moves as a Deku is diving into these flowers and jumping out and flying around with some flowers. And we'll use this trick to make our way through the rest of the forest, making a quick stop along the way to get our first achievement for grabbing some Deku nuts out of this chest. and to check out this tree that suspiciously looks like a dead Deku scrub, but I'm sure that's just a coincidence. We finally make our way through the forest, and before we go through the big doors leading into Clocktown, we're stopped by the mask salesman. He tells us he's been watching everything that's happened to us and explains that he was also robbed by the Skull Kid, who took a very important mask from him. He also says he has a way to return us to our human form if we can get back our ocarina from Skull Kid, and all he wants in return is for us to get back the stolen mask. The only catch is he has to leave in 3 days, so that's all the time that we have to get the job done. But it's not like we have a choice at this point, so we agree to help him and then head into Clocktown to begin our quest. So now we get to explore Clocktown, the central hub in the land of Termina, and as you explore, you'll find plenty of familiar faces if you played the last game. Except these are not the same people. This is like an alternate universe situation, so every character in Hyrule has a Termina counterpart. Sometimes the two characters are similar, like Muto, who works as a carpenter in both games and is just as stubborn and grumpy as he normally is in both worlds. Other times, the two characters live totally different lives, like how the Kuko lady, who doesn't even have a name in Ocarina of Time, is now called Anju and she runs the town's hotel. And I actually like this idea for the characters. It helps add to the kind of familiar yet different, kind of uncanny feeling that's persistent throughout the game. Now that being said, I don't think that was really the intention here. I think it was more so the fact that the game was made in under a year, so reusing character models is faster than making new ones. But in either case, I think it fits the game's vibe really well. Speaking of the vibes around Clocktown are not great. It's 3 days before the annual carnival, but rather than celebrating, everyone is worried about the moon, which seems to be slowly crashing toward town, threatening to destroy the world. Half of the townsfolk are in denial, claiming the moon crashing is a ridiculous theory that should be ignored so they can just focus on the carnival, but the other half thinks the town should evacuate to safety and cancel the carnival. And you know, honestly, this game was just so ahead of its time because you would think anybody could just step outside and look up and see the giant moon looming over them, and that would be enough evidence that it's coming down. But just like in real life, at times like this, there will always be people who insist everything is fine. But I mean, hey, we don't gotta worry about that because we have 3 whole days to get our adventure done, so we'll be gone long before then. And in order to confront Skull Kid, our new fairy Tattle tells us we have to find the Great Fairy. The only issue is when we get to the Great Fairy Fountain, we see that Skull Kid got to her first, so in order to bring her back, we have to find the Lost Fairy hidden somewhere in town. And depending on what time of day you go looking, you'll either find this Lost Fairy in the laundry pool, or if it's nighttime, you'll find it in East Clocktown near the hotel. Oh yeah, speaking of time, now's probably a good time to talk about that whole time mechanic thing. This game uses a unique time mechanic and the clock is always ticking. That whole 3-day time limit thing isn't just a story narrative, we actually do only have 3 in-game days before that moon comes crashing down. One in-game day is about 18.5 real minutes long, so that gives us just under an hour in total, which doesn't sound like a lot of time, but we'll be doing some time manipulation once we get our ocarina back. The time mechanic is one of the best and most unique things about this game. It can take a little getting used to, granted, but my favorite thing about it is the fact that the side quests now have multiple outcomes based on the actions you take. For example, at midnight on the first day, if we're in North Clocktown, we can see this old lady getting robbed by a thief named Sakon. As a Deku scrub, we can't really do anything about this. All we can do is helplessly watch him get away. If only there was an armed guard nearby or something. And because the thief got away, the bomb store in town will no longer be able to sell the large bomb bag on day 2 because he got away with it. However, once we get our human form back, we'll be able to actually stop Sakon by attacking him with our sword, and doing so gets us the bomb mask from the woman as a thank you. And then on the second day, we can now buy the bomb bag from the shop. Alternatively, once we get the hero's bow later in the game, we can just shoot the bomb bag and blow it up, causing Sakon to literally die and never be seen again. And that's just one example of how actions in one day will affect the next, and that's something I really like about this game. And that's not even the best example, but I don't want to get too ahead of myself here. After all, we're still in our Deku form, so I think it's time to get back to business. We take that Lost Fairy back to the fountain to restore the Great Fairy, and she awards us with the power to use magic. Now we can blow spit bubbles, which is gross, but I guess is effective. We can go outside and shoot down this balloon in North Clocktown to impress the local child gang leader. He's so impressed with our balloon popping skills that he challenges us to a game of hide and seek, and if we win, we'll get access to their secret hideout. We have until morning to find them, but they always hide in the same spots, so we just run around town and find them all. And once we do, they agree to give us the code to access the hideout, but we can't become a full-fledged member since we aren't human. Apparently Skull Kid once joined their gang, and that didn't go so well, so now there's a humans only rule. But it's fine, we can still access their hideout, which is pretty elaborate for a gang of children. I was kind of expecting like a treehouse sort of thing, but they got a whole underground system. And this is the only entrance to the town conservatory. I don't know how a gang of children managed to monopolize the conservatory, but now that we can get in there, we can talk to the old man and take a look through the telescope. If we direct our attention to the clock tower in the center of town, we can get a look at Skull Kid standing on top of it. And then out of nowhere, the moon decides to cry a single tear, which comes crashing down outside. And so we can go outside to pick it up. The moon's tear is a rare stone which we can use to start a long trading side quest. The thing is, we can't complete that side quest right now, but what we can do is do the first trade to this business scrub in the center of town. In exchange for the moon's tear, he gives us the land deed which entitles us to use this gold flower, which will launch us higher than a normal flower. So now we can get high enough to access this platform for a piece of heart. And with that, we're officially done with this cycle. All we have to do now is wait until night of the third day for the doors to open up so we can go confront Skull Kid. These first 3 days are basically a long tutorial, so there isn't a whole lot to do, and honestly, you can skip doing everything just by doing a precise backflip to get up on that ledge instead of using the gold flower. If you want to fast forward a bit, we can talk to the Scarecrow in the conservatory, who will dance with us and advance time by half a day each time that we do. But there are a couple other things we can do during these first 3 days. Outside the Great Fairy Fountain, we can use a nearby flower to enter this grotto, and inside there, we have a Deku Flower minigame we can play where we have to land on some moving platforms and collect rupees. And if we win this game on all 3 days, we get another piece of heart before being accused of being a professional player and banned from ever playing again. We can also get another piece of heart by visiting the toilet in the hotel on any night after midnight. He needs some toilet paper, so we can give him that land deed that we got, and he'll give us a third piece of heart. Once the clock strikes midnight on the final day, the doors to the upper clock tower open, and we can head up there to face off against Skull Kid, who seems to be getting more and more evil by the minute. Tattle's brother, Tail, tries to tell us something about the 4 areas surrounding Clocktown, and bringing the 4 who are there to stop the moon from falling. But before he can finish, Skull Kid slaps him for speaking out of line, and finally Tattle is starting to realize that Skull Kid might be a bad guy. As if robbing people in the forest wasn't a dead giveaway. Skull Kid dares us to try stopping the moon in our current form, but all we can do as a Deku is spit bubbles, which is enough to make him drop our Ocarina, but we're gonna need a much bigger bubble to stop that moon. After we pick up our Ocarina, we get a flashback to the first game to Zelda giving us the Ocarina of Time and teaching us the Song of Time, which ironically did not have any time traveling capabilities in the first game. It also didn't have the ability to turn into an entirely different instrument if we pull it out as a Deku Scrub, but look, just don't ask me how that works. Unlike the last game, playing the Song of Time in Majora's Mask actually does cause us to do a little bit of time traveling. We get sent back 3 days into the past, to the moment we stepped foot in Clocktown. If only we could have traveled 4 days in the past, we could have skipped all of this, but then we wouldn't have a game, I suppose. But now that we have our Ocarina back, the mask salesman teaches us the Song of Healing, which has the power to heal troubled souls and turn them into masks. So not only are we going back to being a human, but we get our first mask, which will allow us to go back to the Deku Scrub form whenever we want. And we even taught the mask salesman a very valuable lesson in receiving payment up front because, yeah, we did not get his mask back. He tells us the history of Majora's Mask and how it was a super evil mask that was so powerful it threatened to destroy the world, so the ancient tribe that created it sealed it away so it couldn't be used. Which begs the question, why on earth did this guy go looking for it? Like, I get it, masks are your whole thing, but maybe we don't go looking for the evil mask that can destroy the world. So we agree to keep our end of the deal, and we head out once more to go get the mask back. Our only lead are the 4 areas that Tail told us about, so we're gonna have to head to the swamp. But first, we have a few errands to run in town now that we're human. First, we have to restore the Great Fairy again, and this time she gives us the fairy mask as a reward, which will come in handy later. Then we have to play another round of hide and seek with the Bomber Gang kids because now that we're a real boy, we can officially join their gang and get the Bomber's Notebook, which will keep track of all of our encounters with the other characters and help us keep track of side quests throughout the game. Then we pick up another quick heart piece by jumping up on this tree, and finally I deposited some rupees in the town bank, because consumable items like rupees, Deku Nuts, bombs, and things like that don't go back in time with us when we play the Song of Time. But luckily, this bank runs on the honor system, and the lady just puts a stamp on us to show us how much money we have in the bank. So technically, when we go back in time, that money we deposited is being taken out of the bank, but the stamp that says we have money in the bank is still on us, so we're basically just stealing money from the bank. But honestly, considering how we have to save up 5,000 rupees for a single heart piece and an achievement, I don't even feel bad about that. There are plenty of spots to find rupees around town, and some of them even respawn every time we play the Song of Time, so it doesn't take too long to save up 200 rupees for our first reward, which is the adult wallet, so now we can carry even more rupees. After doing all of that, we play the Song of Time once again to reset the clock and get our time back, and before we head out to the swamp, there's one more thing we can do, and that is to play the Song of Time backwards. Doing this gives us the inverted Song of Time, which slows down the clock. So now instead of 18 minutes, an in-game day will be just under an hour long, so we don't have to feel rushed and we can take our time exploring. And with that, we make our way to the swamp, and on the way there, we get a flashback cutscene about how Skull Kid and the fairies originally met, and how he was just a quirky little guy who likes to play pranks on people. And by prank, he of course means robbing people in broad daylight. The tone of this cutscene makes me think the developers want us to feel bad for Skull Kid, but I feel no sympathy whatsoever. Once we get to the swamp, we can make our way through by pond skipping as a Deku Scrub, which is a really fun mechanic because your momentum carries over, so if you do a spin attack before jumping off in the water, you can go faster. Which is one of the many things the 3DS version of this game absolutely ruined for zero reason. I don't want to get too sidetracked here, but I just need you all to know I hate the 3DS version of this game. There are so many changes that are just objectively worse. I'll still play it if it ever gets added to retro achievements, but I'm not gonna be happy about it. But getting back to our adventure, we make our way to the Lost Woods, and after following the little monkey down the path, we reach the end of the forest where we see a witch knocked out. But I mean, she's not that hurt because she refuses to talk to us if we're anything other than a human. Just outside the forest, we can head to the potion shop run by her sister, and after explaining the situation, she gives us a red potion to go cure her. And after taking a little sip for ourselves, we do just that. So now she's all healed up and takes off back to her job as the tour guide and offers us a free boat ride. And we even get a free picto box so we can snap some pictures along the way. Our boat ride takes us all the way to the Deku Palace, where normally peasants like us wouldn't be allowed to go inside, but the king has made an exception today since they plan to publicly punish a monkey who's been accused of kidnapping the Deku princess. The monkey claims he's innocent, but that's exactly what somebody who did kidnap the princess would say, so who knows what to believe. Well, the monkey's brother, who meets us outside, also says he's innocent, so now it's 2 against 1, and we can't argue with those numbers. So it's time to break the monkey out of prison. First, we have to sneak around the castle grounds and avoid getting caught by the guards. After sneaking through the right path, we end up in a grotto where we can buy some magic beans. And in the last game, I remember this dude just jacked up the price every time we bought one, but thankfully his Termina counterpart isn't that greedy. With the magic beans, we can plant some outside the castle, which sprouts a flying flower that gets us to the upper path of the castle. Here we just have to fly around and dodge the anti-air Deku squad, which I totally didn't struggle with. Remember, I'm a professional gamer after all. Once we make it across the upper path, we end up in the cage with the monkey. He tells us his story about how he and the princess went to the Woodfall Temple to figure out what's causing the water in the swamp to be poisoned. And the princess was captured by the monster in the temple. But when he came back without her, the Deku King assumed it was him who kidnapped her. He then teaches us the Sonata of Awakening, which will let us access the temple, but it also convinces the king that he must be responsible, because how else would he know the song? Let's go watch him get punished. Punishment! 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 Yeah, you kidnapped her! You know the song! There's no other reason why you would know that song! Punish him! So now we have to make our way up to the Woodfall Temple, making a quick pit stop to show a picture of the Deku King to the guy back at the boat tour booth for another heart piece, as well as learning the Song of Soaring after a quick chat with our favorite owl guy, who I'm happy to say is much less annoying in this game. The Song of Soaring allows us to fast travel to any of these owl statues, which can be found all over Termina and are activated when we hit them with our sword. We've already activated a few of them so far, and our next one is just outside the Woodfall Temple. And now's a good time to talk about how saving the game works in Majora's Mask. You can no longer just simply save the game whenever you want to, like in Ocarina of Time. Now you can only save the game in two ways. The first way is to play the Song of Time, which resets the 3-day cycle, but it also saves your game. If you don't want to reset the cycle, you have to find one of these owl statues, but this is where it gets a little stupid. Because you can't save your game and then continue on with your journey, you can only save and quit from an owl statue. And when you reload the game, your owl statue save is erased. So the owl statues are just a one-time save if you want to take a break. There's no way to save the game mid-cycle and continue on from there. And honestly, I have no idea what they were going for here. Maybe the idea was to reinforce the game's theme of redoing the cycle, so if you make a mistake, instead of just reloading your save, you're expected to start a new cycle. Or maybe they wanted to prevent save scumming, since managing your time is supposed to be a core part of the game, but whatever the reason is, it's just not a good system. I don't mind the removal of saving whenever you want. I think that adds a bit of difficulty to the game and makes the whole time limit thing a bit more impactful. If it was just you having to get to an owl statue to save, I'd be fine with it. But making the owl statue saves a one-time use is just so inconvenient and not worth whatever it was they were going for when making this decision. There is a workaround that you can do, which is backing up your saves. After you save and quit using an owl statue, you can copy your file over to file 2, assuming you aren't sharing your game with anybody who has their own file, and then resume your game from the first file. That way, if anything happens, like the game crashes or something, you can recopy file 2's backup and pick up from where you left off. It's not a foolproof system, it's still pretty inconvenient and runs the risk of you maybe accidentally deleting the wrong file or something if you aren't paying attention, or God forbid you're a child who has to share the game with a sibling who wants their own file, but unfortunately is the best you can do. Unless you're playing on the Japanese version, in which case the owl saves aren't even a thing. You can only save with the Song of Time, which requires a cycle reset. A very weird system, considering in the previous game you just press start and save whenever you want, so this is a pretty big downgrade. But enough about all that. Getting back to our adventure, we play the Sonata of Awakening while standing at the entrance to the Woodfall Temple in order to bring it up from under the swamp. And now we get to explore our very first temple of the game. For the most part, temples in this game work like they did in the last game. You explore rooms, solve a puzzle or two, find keys to unlock doors, and then at some point you'll face a mini-boss who gives you a special item as a reward. In this case, our first mini-boss is this guy who goes down in just a few sword swings. He does have a fire-breathing attack, which would be an issue if you're in the Deku form, as fire and wood don't really mix, but as a human, you just dodge the fire and hit him with your sword a few times, and he goes down nice and easy. And our prize for defeating him is the Hero's Bow. There is one new mechanic for temples in this game, and that is the Lost Fairies. Each temple has 15 Lost Fairies to find who have to be returned to the Great Fairy Fountain that can be found nearby outside. Fairies can be hidden in plain sight, or inside chests, pots, and even enemies, so it's a good incentive to thoroughly explore every nook and cranny. And this is when that fairy mask that we got back in Clocktown comes into play. While wearing the fairy mask, our hair will sparkle if there's a fairy in the current room that you're in, and if the fairy isn't trapped inside of something, the mask also attracts them toward you. So you definitely want to make sure you pick up this mask before tackling any temples. As we make our way through the rest of the temple, we have one more mini-boss fight against this snapper riding gecko. It's a simple enough fight. First, we have to flip over the snapper turtle, and we can do that with a variety of methods, like using the Deku flowers to attack them from underneath as they ride over us, or you can just use a bomb as it gets close to you. Then you have to shoot the gecko with an arrow as he climbs the walls, and repeat that a few times until he's defeated. It's not a hard fight, just as long as you can hit all your arrow shots, which is something I'm very good at. Get him! Get him, Link! Shoot! Oh my god, Z targeting my ass! This time, our prize for defeating him is the boss key, which lets us take on the big boss of the temple, the masked jungle warrior Adola. This guy is about triple the size of Link, but he isn't too difficult to deal with. We just have to dodge his sword attacks and wait for an opening to hit him back. He has plenty of attack animations that leave him exposed, and he doesn't take all that many hits to defeat. You'll know he's close to defeat once he pulls out this swinging sword move, and after a few more hits, he's defeated. It's a pretty quick and simple fight overall, however we do have to fight him again for an achievement, and that one's gonna be a lot harder, but we're gonna do that on the next 3-day cycle. So for now, we pick up his remains, which is our trophy for defeating him, and by doing so, we freed the spirit that was trapped within it. That spirit takes us to the Chamber of Giants, a sacred place where the 4 giants of Termina used to rest. They've been trapped in the 4 temples, and in order to free them all, we'll have to defeat the bosses in each of them like we just did. And the first giant that we just freed teaches us the Oath to Order song, which we can use to summon the giants once we confront Skull Kid again to put a stop to the moon crashing. But we're gonna need all 4 of them before we can do that, so we have a little ways to go. And now that the temple has been cleansed of all the evil spirits, the swamp water returns to normal, and we're able to rescue the Deku Princess, who is not happy to hear that her monkey friend is being tortured at this very moment. She asks us if we have something to carry her in, so we stuff her into an empty bottle, because she is a princess after all. We can't expect her to walk back to the palace like some kind of common peasant. So we're gonna take her back to the palace, but first a quick detour to the Great Fairy Fountain so we can return the lost fairies that we collected. And our prize for doing so is an upgrade to our sword spin attack. With that done, we head back to the Deku Palace and return the princess safe and sound. Just look at how happy she is to be home. With the monkey freed and the swamp unpoisoned, things are now back to normal at the Deku Palace. As a thank you for returning the princess, the Deku Butler has a reward for us, but he's gonna make us work for it by chasing him through a series of chambers. Sort of like the Dampé race in Ocarina of Time, except it's a lot longer and a little bit harder. Once we make it to the end, the Butler rewards us with the Mask of Sense, which isn't the most useful mask in the game, but at least it gets us another achievement. He then apologizes for trying so hard to outrun us and explains that we remind him of his son who left home long ago and never returned. I mean, I'm sure he's doing fine though, he's definitely not dead in the middle of the Lost Woods or anything. We still have some time left in this cycle, so next I decided to visit our first spider house, which can be found back in the swamp. The spider curse from Ocarina of Time is back in this game, but it works a little different this time. Instead of having to find all the gold Skulltulas all over Termina, this time there's only 30 to find, and they're all confined to this small dungeon. Aside from that, it still works the same. You find a spider, destroy it, and collect this token, and once you collect all the tokens, the curse is lifted. The only difference besides them being all in one spot is the tokens don't come back with you when you play the Song of Time to reset the cycle, so you have to make sure you have enough time to get them all. But it's not a long dungeon, it only took me about half an in-game day with the inverted Song of Time, and that's without using a guide, so I did get lost once or twice. But eventually we track down all of the spiders, and once we return to the guy at the entrance, he rewards us with the Mask of Truth, which is what got him cursed in the first place, so I don't know why he thinks that we want it. Now that the swamp is unpoisoned, we can take another boat tour, and this time we can play a target shooting minigame where we can win another piece of heart if we manage to hit the target 20 times. We just have to be careful not to accidentally shoot the witch. That's it, we're done! Get out! To shoot a pathetic old hag 10 times. Oh, you were keeping count? Oh, I didn't realize you were keeping count, I'm sorry. Now it's 10 rupees? I have to pay now? There's also another target shooting minigame near the entrance to the swamp, and winning this one gets us a quiver upgrade to let us hold more arrows. This time there's a finite amount of targets, so we just have to shoot them all to win. And the trick to winning this one is to prioritize the more important targets. The Deku Scrubs in the middle don't go anywhere, but the birds and the Wolfos will eventually leave the screen if you don't shoot them fast enough, so you want to prioritize those when they appear. And you want to make sure that you don't forget about the 2 Deku Scrubs on the higher ledges. The enemies all appear in the same spots every game, so you can just practice until you get it down. I ended up getting it on my second game with 17 seconds left to spare, so it's not that difficult. And while we're playing shooting minigames, we can play one more back in Clocktown for another quiver upgrade. This one has us shooting Octoroks, and we have to avoid shooting the blue ones or we'll lose time. Just like the last game, they'll appear in the same spots each game, so you can just practice until you get the pattern down. I managed to score 44 points on my first game, which was enough for our second quiver upgrade, so now we can hold up to 50 arrows. We have just a few hours left before we have to reset the clock, but we have just enough time for one more minigame for an achievement. We can talk to this sword master in North Clocktown, and we can take the expert course. And if we get a perfect score, we'll get another piece of heart and an achievement. And at first I messed this up because he clearly says to cut down 10 logs using the highly difficult techniques. So I thought that meant we have to use all the different types of attacks, but what you're actually supposed to do is jump attack each log. So after realizing that, I played the game a second time, and then we got the perfect score, which gets us the achievement and another heart piece. This sword master is also a big fraud. He brags about how he plans to slice the moon into pieces, and if one can't do that, then he's not qualified to teach the way of the sword. But if we come back here during the final hours, we can find him cowering in the back room. I kind of wish there was an achievement for this too. There are so many interactions you can have with the other characters about how they're handling the end of the world. The postman is so committed to his job that he can't bring himself to leave town, despite the fact that he really wants to. He even wrote himself a letter telling him to just do it. Like, brother, pass me the Sharpie. I'll write it on your schedule for you if that's what it takes. Cowards, none of you stayed. I'll have a fine carnival without you. Brother, just look up. The moon is right there. You can literally jump up and grab it at this point. How are you still insisting there's no problem? Thankfully for everyone though, Doomsday is about to be cancelled because it's now time to play the Song of Time and reset the 3-day cycle once again. Which is good for everybody except for that monkey back in the Deku Palace because he's about to get tortured once again. On the next cycle, it's time to go back and get that achievement that we skipped in Woodfall Temple. But this time we can simply warp back to the temple and play the Song of Awakening again. We don't have to redo all that Deku Palace stuff. We don't even have to replay the temple because in this game, once you clear a temple, you can warp to the boss room right at the start to refight them. Which is the reason why I decided to wait to do this achievement so we can restart the fight quicker if we fail. Our goal this time is to defeat the boss only using bomb flowers and without using our shield or taking damage. So needless to say, this fight is gonna be a bit harder. The first thing I noticed is bomb flowers take a long time to detonate compared to regular bombs, and the blast radius isn't even that big, so just damaging him with a bomb flower is pretty difficult. On the plus side though, bombs do a lot of damage. We only have to hit him with 2 bombs in order to defeat him. So we just have to find a way to do that without taking any damage. The easiest way to do this is to wait for him to do the attack where he summons the bugs to come attack us, because during that attack he stands still for a long time, making him an easy target. At the start of the fight, he does this other move where he runs laps around the center, and it is possible to time a bomb there, but it's more difficult because of how long the bombs take to blow up. Overall, this challenge makes the fight a lot harder than the first time, and I wasn't a big fan of the whole no damage part of it. I felt that just made it more annoying than challenging because that just means you have to restart the fight a bunch of times. I feel like the challenge of landing a bomb flower was really fun and would have preferred if it was just that. But I also just don't really like damageless achievements in the first place, so maybe that's just me. But with enough patience, I managed to pull it off, and it was a very close call. Get him, please get him. Get him, get him! Woo! Oh god, that was scary! Oh my god, he almost got my ass! Woo! After we got that achievement, I was convinced by my chat that there was a good prize for doing the Deku Butler race a second time, and I had to do this twice because I had no arrows, so I ended up dying trying to jump around these fire platforms, only to then realize I could have used a Deku Bubble to turn them off. And my reward for this detour was a whopping 20 rupees, so shout out to my stream chat for wasting my time. At least now we saved up 1,000 rupees, so surely the prize for that will be even better, right? And we got 5 rupees. That's what they call interest, except that's not even how interest works. With all that done, I play the Song of Time once again to restart our cycle, and now it's time to head to the mountains, where we'll find our second temple. The path is blocked by some ice, but now that we have the arrows, we can shoot down this icicle and clear the way. After making our way through the mountains, we arrive at the Goron village, which has been frozen by an endless blizzard. Our owl friend with the impossible to pronounce name is here, and he helps guide us across some invisible platforms so we can reach the floating cave on the other side, and inside there, we find our Lens of Truth. We can use the Lens of Truth to see invisible things, like the spooky Goron ghost who's waiting for us back in the Goron village. He wants us to follow him back to the mountain village, and I like how you don't even have to use the Lens of Truth that we just got, you can just follow his shadow. Speaking of not using the Lens of Truth, we have an achievement here for climbing this wall without using it to see the invisible ladder. This took me a little bit of trial and error. You pretty much just have to count your movements and figure out the path. And honestly, it was pretty fun trying to figure it out without using a guide, so I recommend trying it that way if you're going for these achievements. But if you want to just follow exactly what I ultimately ended up doing, starting from the bottom, I climbed up 24 steps, then 10 steps to the right, another 24 steps up, then 7 steps to the left, another 24 steps up, and then 12 steps to the left, and from there we just climbed the rest of the way up, and once we reached the top, we got our achievement. Inside the cave at the top of the cliff, we meet up with that Goron ghost who introduces himself as the Goron hero Darmani. He explains that the blizzard that's been freezing his people is coming from a monster inside the Snowhead Temple. He went there to try to deal with it, but died trying, and now his spirit is stuck here unable to move on. Which sounds like a fantastic opportunity to get ourselves a new mask. So we play him the Song of Healing to free his spirit, and now we have a new form that we can take on. Goron Link is super strong, so we can pull back this tombstone to reveal the hot spring that's underneath. We scoop up some of that hot water, which we can use to melt the frozen Goron Elder. He thinks we're a hallucination because we're supposed to be dead, so in order to convince him that we're real, we have to pay a visit to the Goron City, which we can open up by doing a Goron Pound by the door. Inside the city, the Elder's son is crying up a storm because his dad is missing. And now that we've learned this valuable information, we can unfreeze the Goron Elder once more and tell him the news, which convinces him that we're real. He teaches us the beginning of the Goron's lullaby since he can't remember the whole song, but the intro is all we need to calm down the crying baby back in the Goron City. After hearing the intro, the Elder's son teaches us the rest of the song, so now we've learned the Goron's lullaby, which puts the entire city to sleep. Or maybe it just put the baby to sleep, but everybody else is just finally able to rest. Before heading out, we can use a Deku Stick to light some torches, and using our new Goron rolling ability, we can start breaking all the pots on the chandelier. Inside one of those, we'll find this rock sirloin, because Goron people just put gourmet rocks in their chandeliers for some reason. We can carry it all the way back to the mountain village and give it to this Goron who's stuck up on this ledge. I mean, stuck is a bit dramatic, it's like a 2-foot drop, but he claims he's so hungry that he simply doesn't have the energy to get down. But I mean, hey, whatever gets us another mask, I suppose. With the Goron's lullaby, we can now make our way to the Snowhead Temple. There's strong winds preventing us from making it across the bridge, and if we play the Goron's lullaby, we see that the wind is being caused by a giant invisible Goron. But now that we put him to sleep, we can get into our second temple. This temple is pretty much one big vertical tower, so it's pretty straightforward and easy to navigate. A few of the lost fairies are behind fake walls, which you either use the lens of truth to see past, or you can see the snow melting on the wall where the ledge is. Personally, I find this kind of annoying since I hate having to double check areas with the lens of truth, but they're not too difficult to find. You also have to do a little platforming with the Goron mask, which is fun, but missing a jump means a very long walk back. But for a professional gamer like me, it's nothing to worry about. I mean, yeah, I just did that one so I could show it off for the video. Our mini boss is a Wizrobe, who is the first of many that we'll be fighting throughout this game. They all work the same though. For the first phase, he pops up from one of these portals and we can attack him once he starts spinning. Then in phase 2, each of the portals will have a Wizrobe, but only one of them is real, so I'll have to identify the real one. The real Wizrobe is the only one that Tattle will hover over, and it's also the only one that makes sound, so you can use audio cues as well. For these fights, I like to sit in one spot and just use arrows, and after about 6 shots, he's defeated. And our prize for defeating him is the fire arrows. We have another Wizrobe fight on the top floor, and this time there's more portals and they're a bit more spread out, but it's otherwise the exact same fight. And once we defeat that one, that gets us the boss key so we can take on the most fun fight in the entire game. The mass mechanical monster Got. This is my favorite boss in the entire game. You have to chase him around using the Goron roll and ram into him while dodging his projectile attacks. If you manage to get airborne and hit him, you'll cause him to trip and you can get some attacks in while he's down. Overall, it's a pretty simple fight, but it's just incredibly fun and satisfying to execute, and I always look forward to this one. But unfortunately, I did not get to fight him the fun way because we have an achievement for defeating him without taking damage and without using any masks. And the safest way to do this achievement is unfortunately pretty boring. If you just hang out near the door to the room, it's impossible to take damage, so you can just sit there and hit him with arrows as he passes by. It takes a pretty long time, but as long as you can hit your shots, it's pretty much impossible to fail. There's nearby pots so you can refill your magic and arrows if you run out, and using fire arrows does speed things up a little bit, but ultimately this achievement takes more patience than skill. There is a faster method that speedrunners use where if you run into this corner at the start of the fight, Got will turn around and start shooting at you, but it's very unlikely that he'll actually hit you. And from there, you can just keep sniping him a bunch of times until he's defeated. There is of course the risk that you'll take a hit and have to restart the fight, but you can just make sure to beat him normally once, and then that way you can teleport to the boss room on future cycles for a faster restart. That said, I'd much rather fight him the casual way because it's just way more fun. I think this is a rare case where a simple damageless fight would have actually been a fun challenge, so I kind of would have preferred that, but I do like that this achievement encourages you to learn the speedrun strat, so overall I think it was a pretty fun challenge. Once he's defeated, we grab his remains, pay another visit to the Chamber of Giants to set the next one free, and now the blizzard that's been plaguing the mountains is over, so things are back to normal in the Goron village. We turn in our lost fairies to the Great Fairy Fountain, and our prize this time is an upgrade that doubles our magic capacity. Back in the Goron village, we can now access this big Goron who sells powder kegs, but he won't sell them to just anybody. We first have to get our license to carry powder kegs. And to do that, we have to prove that we can handle them by carrying one all the way from the Goron village up to the big rock that's blocking the path to the Goron races. Hopefully the blast is big enough to take out this crying child. Now that the path's clear, we can compete in the Goron races, which is tons of fun. The Goron rolling is just a super fun and satisfying thing to do, so a nice big open field to let loose is a lot of fun. Just watch out for the competition. For some reason, they can roll into you despite not having spikes like we do. There's no penalty for losing. The baby Goron just tells you to remember to be good and try again, and you can try as many times as you want until you win. And our prize for winning is a bottle full of gold dust, which we can't really use right now since it's already day 2, but we can at least keep the bottle when we travel back in time. After that, we head back to the big Goron to become powder keg certified, so now we can buy these whenever we want. And with nothing else left to do for now, we play the Song of Time to start a fresh 3-day cycle. Now that we have our license, back in Clocktown, we can buy powder kegs from the Goron in the bomb shop. And we could take one to Milk Road to blow up the giant rock that's blocking the path into Romani Ranch. And there we find our lost horse. To get her back, we talk to Romani, who tells us that she's practicing for the yearly alien invasion that's happening tonight. The aliens are after the cows on the farm, and it's gonna be up to us to stop them. We have to pass a quick test by shooting some balloons with our bow, and after we prove that we're up to the task, Romani teaches us a Pona song and returns her to us and asks us to meet her back here at the farm at 2 AM to defend the cows. In the meantime, we head back to the mountains to defeat Got once again so we can bring springtime back to the mountains. And now that we've done that, we can start upgrading our sword in the blacksmith shop in the mountain village. The whole process will take about 2 days to complete, but it's well worth the wait. First, we can pay 100 rupees for our first upgrade, and that will be ready on the next day. In the meantime, we can win another Goron race so we can get another bottle of gold dust, which we'll need for our next sword upgrade. But we'll have to wait until day 2 for that, so we have some time to kill before then. I decided to use this time to work on another achievement that we can get back at Romani Ranch. At the doggy racetrack, we can bet on dogs and win some rupees if they win. Normally, you would use the Mask of Truth to talk to all the dogs and find out which one's gonna win, but for our achievement, we have to win 150 rupees without using the mask. Surprisingly, the dogs do have different stats, and our best bet is going to be the gold dog, who is generally the fastest. And you want to make sure that you bet 80 rupees, as this will get you the 150 rupee prize as long as it places in the top 3. Alright, well he's in dead last, so we're not starting off very good. Gold, you better find your way out to the front, buddy. Come on, Gold, push through the crowd, man, just push through! Bite their ankles! Oh, brother, he sucks! Thankfully, it only took me 2 tries for the gold dog to win, so it wasn't too bad as far as RNG achievements go. We still have some more time to spare before we have to fight the aliens, so I headed back to Clocktown to talk to the Song of Storms guy, who tells us his tragic story of being in an animal troupe and getting upstaged by a dog. And he was so mad that he stole the dog's mask, and now he gave us the mask, so we're now an accessory to this crime. And now it's time to head back to the farm to defend the cows against the aliens. For this side quest, I prefer to set the time back to normal speed, since you have to defend the barn from 2 AM to 6 AM. So having the in-game time move slower just means that you have to spend more real time defending the barn. You can also buy a mini-map from Tingle back in Milk Road, which will have the alien locations on it, but I didn't do that because I forgot to. You can also pay attention to the dog who's nearby. He'll always be barking at the closest alien to the barn, which is useful because one of the aliens will come in from behind, so he's easy to miss if you aren't paying attention. It's not too difficult overall, though I did have a pretty close call, but I still managed to succeed on the first attempt. And our prize for doing all this is a bottle of milk. This side quest is also a great example of why I like the time mechanic so much, because if you forget to come back here on the first day, you'll find Romani in like a brainwashed trance-like state because she got abducted by the aliens. Which not only makes you feel horrible, but it also locks you out of a future side quest, so it's a really good example of how your actions have consequences in this game. And if you're someone like me who loves to see all the different dialogue that characters have, then it adds a ton of replayability to the game. And since we're already here at the farm, we can head to the Kuko Shack, and now that we have the Bremen's mask, we can round up all the baby Kukos by marching around near them, which is one of the cutest things ever. And with Majora's Mask being a pretty dark game overall, wholesome moments like this feel so much better. Once we gather them all up, they grow up into adult Kukos, and Grog here is so happy to see them all grown up that he gives us the bunny hood, a very useful mask that increases Link's movement speed. With all that done, now that we're on day 2, we can head back to the blacksmith and get our upgraded sword. And I love the Razor Sword. It looks really awesome, and it's even used in some of the official art for this game, but the problem is this sword will break after 100 uses. So we're just gonna give it right back to the blacksmith along with our gold dust so we can upgrade it one more time. That's gonna take another day to complete, and instead of patiently waiting, I decided to use the double song of time to skip forward to the 3rd day. And with that, we now have our final upgrade with the gilded sword. This sword does triple the damage of the Kokiri sword, plus it won't break and it comes back in time with us. So it's definitely an upgrade that's worth the 2-day wait. But I've had enough side questing for now, so it's time to get back to our main quest. Now that we have Epona, we can hop the walls leading to the Great Bay Coast where we'll find our 3rd temple. We also find a drowning Zora, which seems like an oxymoron. I mean, these are fish people, right? Swimming is your whole thing. Once we get him to shore, he tells us that he went to the Gerudo pirate fortress to recover some stolen Zora eggs and got beat up by all the pirates. Then he asks us to heal his soul before dropping dead right in front of us. I mean, his injuries don't seem all that serious, but I'll gladly send him to the Shadow Realm if it means we get another mask. As a Zora, water levels actually become kind of fun. We can swim around much faster, and you can even jump back up to land if you time it right, which is pretty fun to do. There's honestly so many small details like this in the game that are super satisfying. The Deku pond skipping, Goron rolling, Zora swimming, just the act of moving around in this game is pretty fun. At least on the Nintendo 64 version anyway. The 3DS version ruins almost all of these, like how pond skipping as a Deku is now slow since it doesn't carry your momentum. And swimming as a Zora consumes magic, so you're discouraged from using it. Our new Zora form also has a boomerang attack, which we can practice using this pot breaking minigame. If you fail, you have to pay 10 rupees to replace the pots, but if you come into this game with no money, you can try as many times as you want, and this guy just has to eat the loss. And with the amount of times I was failing this, we're gonna put this man out of business. Our last attack as a Zora is a magic shield, which we can use while swimming, which is a very good attack. We can use it on this like at the bottom of the waterfall for another piece of heart. Now that we've gotten the hang of being a Zora, we can head into the Zora Hall and get on with our quest. After talking to our bandmates, we learned that Lulu, our lead singer, had her egg stolen by the Gerudo pirates, and ever since then she's been unable to speak. So we're gonna have to get them back. While I was exploring around, I also started to realize that the Zora people are a bunch of freaks. You got this guy trying to break into Lulu's room, this guy talking about how jealous he is that we get to breathe the same air as her, and just casually asks us to take a pictograph of her private side, which he'll buy from us for 20 rupees. This guy's creeping around the outside of the Gerudo fortress trying to get a peek at the sexy pirate ladies, like, no sir, I am gonna judge you. And it's not even just the Zora. This guy wants to trade us a seahorse for a picture of one of the pirates. They should rename this place to Gooner Bay because everyone who lives here is a creep. And we could just take a photo of any of the pirates, that guy's not too picky, but if we're gonna do it, we're gonna get a good photo. So I decided to make my life harder by grabbing a photo of one of the pirate leaders who we have to fight as we sneak around the fortress. And I spent way too much time trying to get a photo this way. Oh, there's a picture! Her sword got in the way though, damn it, her sword got in the way. There we go, that's gotta be it. Oh, her head disappeared. I mean, that's probably fine, right? Okay, well, that probably will make him very happy, but we're gonna respect her and get her whole head in there. I'm gonna die trying to get this picture. This is advanced Pokemon Snap. I don't think he'll like that. That is a good picture. I like that. That is like a nice picture of her like attacking, but I don't think he's gonna like it though. All right, that's it. He's got to be happy with that one. We got full upper body, we got face, we got the attack. I know the fairy's in there, but like, whatever. Call that a 2-for-1. As we make our way through the pirate fortress to recover the missing eggs, we also find the hookshot, which, fun fact, was originally owned by the fisherman who asked us for the pirate photo. And even if we present it to him, he still would rather have the picture of the pretty pirate ladies. So we give him that photo in exchange for that golden seahorse. The seahorse will help us navigate the cloudy water surrounding Pinnacle Rock, where we'll find the rest of the Zora eggs. We just have to take out a few eels first, which we can easily do with our magic attack. And after defeating the last eel, we also free another seahorse and reunite them with the one that we rescued from the fisherman, and they gave us a piece of heart as a prize. Now that we recovered all the Zora eggs, we drop them off at the tank in the laboratory, and the second that they're born, they're already teaching us a new song, the New Wave Bossa Nova, and we can play this song to Lulu, who realizes her eggs are safe and gets her voice back. And after our little jam session, we awaken the giant turtle, who offers us a ride to our next temple. The Great Bay Temple is basically the water temple of Majora's Mask. A lot of people hate this one, but in my opinion, it's way more tolerable than the Ocarina of Time's water temple. The big gimmick here is that there's these water valves that we have to find and activate. We start with the yellow valves, and those make the big central room spin in one direction, and eventually we have to find all the red valves, which will make this room spin the opposite direction and then open up more paths for us. It's less tedious since you aren't constantly equipping and de-equipping iron boots, but there's still a good amount of backtracking you have to do if you're playing this casually for the first time. But for a professional gamer like me, there were no issues whatsoever. For the record, you can just shoot that pot with an arrow from the surface, which makes it way easier, but I was just pretending to struggle for the sake of content. There's some pretty fun boss fights in this temple too. Our first one is this big eyeball monster. He's surrounded by bubbles, which we can snipe off of him to reveal his weak spot, which if you couldn't guess by now is the giant eyeball. Once he's knocked down, he starts ramming the walls while the rest of his bubbles scatter. Our upgraded spin attack is pretty good at taking out the bubbles, and once we dealt with all those, we just have to hit his eye a few more times until he's defeated. And our prize this time is the ice arrows, which are actually pretty useful in this game. We can use them to freeze enemies to create platforms so we can reach higher areas, and we can also just shoot into the water to create platforms as well. So these are a lot better in this game than they were in Ocarina of Time. And we'll need the ice arrows to defeat our second mini-boss, who's another gecko like we fought back in Woodfall, but instead of riding on a snapper turtle, he instead has this giant gelatinous blob that he hangs out with on the ceiling. And in order to break him out, we'll have to freeze it with the ice arrows so it comes crashing down. It's not a difficult fight, but I do love the attack animation for this one. If he manages to catch you, he'll just beat the absolute crap out of Link before launching him across the room. After defeating him, we get another boss key so we can now face the big boss of the temple. For this one, we have to track him in the water as he swims around our platform, and when he's getting ready to attack, we can stun him with an arrow. Once he's stunned, we can jump in the water as a Zora and use our magic attack to damage him. Then we have to make sure to get out of the water quick enough before he swallows us and deals some damage. Speaking of which, our bonus achievement for this fight is to simply defeat him without taking any damage. This was our easiest boss achievement in the set, but I still made sure to defeat him normally once, that way we don't have to walk through the entire temple every time we want to reset. The hardest part of the fight is transitioning from the water back to the platform. If you don't do it quick enough, you'll get gobbled up, so that just takes a little bit of practice. And honestly, if you're really struggling with this fight, you could just wait till you finish the game because you'll get a mask at the end that makes this fight super easy. But it only took me a few tries before I was able to successfully defeat him without taking any damage. So we got that achievement, +1 for grabbing his remains, and with our third giant freed, life now goes back to normal at the Great Bay, so all the Zoras can now goon in peace once again. It's almost time for another cycle reset, but we have just a few more things to wrap up first. We turn in our lost fairies who we got from the Great Bay Temple, and our prize this time is an upgrade to our defense which reduces all the damage that we take. Then the Fisher guy has a platforming minigame for us to win for another piece of heart, so Link can flex his parkour flipping skills. Then if we climb up the waterfall, we can do another minigame where we have to race against the Beaver brothers. This one we have to win 4 times because once we beat the little brother, his big brother comes in and demands a rematch. And after beating him, we'll win an empty bottle. But if we beat them 2 more times after that, we'll get a piece of heart. So in total, we have to race them 4 times. Luckily, this minigame is pretty fun. I actually like it quite a bit, so I don't mind having to do it so much. With all that done, we reset the cycle, but we have one more thing to take care of at Great Bay. There's another spider house here, but we have to get it done before day 2 in order to get the prize that we're after. This spider house is pretty much the same as the first one. There's 30 spiders to find, and we have to do it on the same cycle since the tokens don't come back in time with us. There is one room worth noting though, where we have a bunch of these skeleton guys hanging out. We're supposed to come back here once we obtain a mask that lets us talk to them so we can learn a secret code, but I decided to be lazy and try to brute force the code instead. We have to shoot these masks in a specific order, and that order changes with each save file, so we can't just look up the answer. But we can also just use the process of elimination to blindly guess the code until we get the right answer. And that lets us get this piece of heart a little bit early. After clearing out the spiders, we can talk to this guy back at the entrance who wants to use the spider house as a bunker to try to survive the moon crashing, and he gives us the Giant's wallet in exchange for it. Not exactly a fair trade, but we're done with this place anyway, so I guess it's fine. And now that we have the Giant's wallet, we can go for a bit of an odd achievement. For this one, we have to collect 400 rupees and turn in a field without leaving and only using the blast mask. This one was an interesting challenge, but the achievement itself is very picky, so make sure you pay attention to the bottom right corner to make sure that your rupees are being counted. Even using your shield will negate the achievement, as that counts as using something other than the blast mask. The achievement doesn't start counting until you pick up the first rupee, so you can use other weapons before then, just make sure you don't have any other weapon in your hand before picking up the rupee. Because even holding the bow was enough to cause the achievement not to track. So after realizing this, I started out by taking out this bird near the swamp who drops a big orange rupee that's worth 200, which is already half of what we need. Then we can carefully walk up this stump by slowly walking up the edge of the incline. It's a bit tricky, but the chest on top of there has 20 rupees for us. If you don't want to do it this way, you can just plant a bean before you start collecting rupees. Then we head to the base of the mountain to take out the Dodongos. It takes forever with the blast mask, but the big ones drop 50 rupees and the small one gives you 20, so it's well worth it. Just make sure it's daytime since these guys don't spawn at night. Then near Ikana Valley's entrance, we can climb this pole and collect the red rupee on top of that, which was the last bit we needed to get the achievement. The rest of our rupees came from just blowing up the grass and enemies in the area. Despite the achievement being a bit finicky at the start, it was a pretty fun challenge. I decided to take a break and knock out some more side quests before moving on. At nighttime, we could find this dancing guy on top of one of the pillars near the mountain, and after he tells us his regrets of dying before teaching anybody his signature dance moves, we play him the Song of Healing to turn him into a mask, and now he can fulfill his request by teaching his dance moves to some performers back in Clocktown for a piece of heart. Next, on the path leading to Ikana Valley, we can bring a red potion to this invisible guard who we can see using the Lens of Truth. And he gives us the Stone Mask, which is a pretty useful mask that honestly I should have gotten earlier. It lets you walk around undetected by enemies, including NPCs like the pirates back in Great Bay, which makes sneaking around way easier. Then we head back to Romani Ranch to race against the Gorman brothers. You can cheat by shooting them with arrows, but for me that ended up costing me more time than it saved, so I don't really recommend doing that. Just stick to the inside of the turns and make sure to pace yourself so you have enough stamina to take the jumps at full speed. Beating these guys gets us the Garo mask, which we'll need to get into Icona Canyon later. Then we have to fight another round of aliens at Romani Ranch because I forgot to do another side quest earlier, which requires this one to be completed first. After defending the cows, on the second night, you can hitch a ride back into Clocktown from Romani's sister, Cremia, while she makes a delivery to the milk bar. Along the way, we get ambushed by the Gorman brothers who are trying to sabotage our delivery, so we have to fend them off using our arrows. We do have infinite ammo, so we can just keep spamming shots and keep them away pretty easily. Once we fend them off and deliver our cargo, our reward is the Romani's mask. This mask is proof of membership to the milk bar, because milk from the farm isn't just regular milk. They got some super expensive magical milk. It may cost 200 rupees, but it does give you infinite magic for the rest of the 3-day cycle, so it's not a bad deal. There's also a Zora here who wants us to put on a little musical performance for him using all of our different forms. So we have to stand under each spotlight and then follow the directions for each form. And once we have all forms jamming out in perfect harmony, the grumpy guy at the bar is so moved by our performance that he gives us the circus leader's mask. This is one of the more useless masks as it doesn't really get us anything, but it can be used during the Crimea delivery side quest. The Gorman brothers will be too sad to attack you while wearing this mask, so you can skip having to fend them off with arrows. Though since you need to do this quest first to get the mask, there's no real reason to do it a second time. Well, I mean, maybe on second thought, I can think of 2 pretty good reasons to do it again. With some side questing knocked out, I decided it was time to get back to the main story, so we make our way down to Ocarina Canyon. But first we have to make a pit stop at the graveyard. By playing the Song of Awakening, we can awaken this giant skeleton captain and start a boss fight. We'll have to chase him down as he makes his way down the path, and we have to deal with the smaller enemies quickly to catch up with him. Once we do catch up, we can make quick work of him thanks to our upgraded gilded sword. So we just gotta poke him a few times until he admits defeat. Now that we've proven that we're worthy, he gives us the captain's hat, so now we're in control of his army. These guys don't bother to stand at attention when I spoke to them, so I had to make an example out of them. See, that's more like it. You just gotta show them who's boss and they'll fall in line. And now that they've opened up the grave for us, we can head down there and fight an Iron Knuckle, and we can easily defeat them using my signature move of stabbing them in the ankles over and over again until they're defeated. I'm honestly kinda shocked that that worked as well as it did. Once we defeated him, we freed the spirit Flat, who's one of the 2 composer brothers, and he teaches us the Song of Storms and tells us to play it for his brother, whose soul has been corrupted by evil. Unlike us, whose soul is nothing but pure and good. Bro doesn't even stop goofing around for his captain? You guys know the price of disobedience. How are you speaking to me right now? You ain't got no head. Well, you know what? That's much better. There you go. Finally, some respect around here. We track down his brother and play him the Song of Storms, and that causes the water to flow through Ocarina Canyon, which activates the big music box outside. And that song makes him so happy that he decides to stop being evil or break the curse or whatever it was. Apparently it was all Skull Kid's fault. That's all we needed to hear. But now that things are back to normal, we can walk around outside and mingle with the locals now that the Gibdos are all gone. Oh, wait a minute, we missed one. But this isn't a normal Gibdo. After a not so subtle hint from Tattle, we play him the Song of Healing, and for the first time, we managed to get ourselves a new mask without someone having to die for it. The lore here is this guy was researching the Gibdos here in Akana Valley, and then something happened to him that turned him into one. But now he's back to normal, and we got ourselves the Gibdo mask. With the Gibdo mask, we can further traumatize this child and get kicked out of the house, but more importantly, we can use it to talk to the other Gibdos at the bottom of the well. We have a bit of a mini dungeon down here, and to navigate our way through it, we'll have to talk to each Gibdo and see what item they want. If we have the item they want, we can trade it to them in exchange for unlocking the door that they're blocking. It's basically one big trading quest. You can find almost everything you need here at the bottom of the well, but we do have to bring in a few things from the outside. We'll need 5 magic beans, which we can pick up from the business scrub at the swamp, a blue potion, which you can find from the business scrub at the bottom of Ocarina Canyon, and lastly, we'll have to bring in some bombs. And fun fact, I have yet to buy the bomb bag during this run. I got the blast mask, and that has just fulfilled all my bombing needs, and I would have gone the entire game like this if not for this one Gibdo who wants some bombs. So I had to make a quick detour back to Clocktown to buy one of those, and while we're here we may as well buy some bomb chews as well, and that gets us another achievement that we could have gotten way earlier. Aside from those, everything else we need can be found down the well, so it's just a matter of running around and delivering everything to all the Gibdos. One of the items that we'll need is a Big Poe, which just requires a short and easy boss fight where we have to shoot it with a few arrows. But we do get a free achievement once we defeat and capture it. And then once we make our way through the rest of the well, our prize is the Mirror Shield. The Mirror Shield reflects light, which helps us remove these light blocks or light up these sun switches, which will open up new paths for us. And we're going to put it to immediate use because before we can make our way to the last temple, we do have another sort of mini dungeon ahead of us at Akana Castle. Man, this area is really making us work for our final temple access. But this mini dungeon is pretty quick and straightforward, though you do have to make sure to bring a powder keg to blow up this hole in the roof, which honestly I hate that because I always forget to do it and it just kills the pacing having to run back to Clock Town just to buy one. Also, this isn't really related to the dungeon itself, but I did learn for the first time that if you get hit by one of these blue skulls and get jinxed, you can play the Song of Storms to cancel it out, which is a fun fact I didn't know about, so shout out to the stream chat for teaching me that one. Once we make our way through, we have a pretty fun boss fight against the King of Ocarina Castle and his minions, but before we get into fighting them, if we equip the Remen's Mask, we can march these two guys around. It doesn't really do anything useful, but it's a little funny thing I wanted to show off. We can also use the Captain's Mask to try to trick the king into thinking that we're Captain Kida, the big skeleton who gave us this mask, but unfortunately he isn't that stupid, so we don't fool him for long. But now that we're done goofing off and showing off little Easter eggs, it's time to actually fight these guys. First, we have to use our fire arrows to burn the curtains of the room to let some light in. And then once we knock out the two lackeys, we can burn them with the light using our mirror shield to take them out. Then we have to face off against the king, and we defeat him in the same way, but he's got some more difficult attacks to deal with. Overall, it's a really fun fight, but I guess because this is a mini boss, we don't have any retro achievements for doing this damageless or anything. Which honestly is a shame. I feel like those unique interactions I showed off could have been achievements. I'm willing to bet a lot of players don't know about them, and I'm always a fan of achievements that lead to these kind of discoveries. But since we don't have any additional challenges, we just take out the king as normal, and our prize for defeating him is the Elegy of Emptiness, a song that lets us create statues of ourselves. Very creepy statues, I might add, so creepy that it inspired the infamous Ben Drown creepypasta. And also as a nice little bonus, this was our final song that we'll learn in the game, so it got us another achievement for learning all those. The statues don't really have all that much use though, which is kind of lame. Their main purpose is to allow us to climb the stone tower to get to our last temple, but that climb is very unfun and tedious. It just requires us to step on these switches, play the Elegy of Emptiness to spawn a statue to weigh it down, and then we do that for like a dozen more switches. But using our new statues, we slowly make our way up the stone tower, and once we're at the top, we pick up another achievement for hitting our last owl statue. And thank God for that, because now we don't ever have to do this climb ever again. But before we enter our fourth and final temple of the game, we have one more thing to take care of, and we'll need a fresh 3-day cycle for this next achievement, where we have to collect every lost fairy on a single 3-day cycle. The lost fairies don't come back in time with us, so they can all be collected again, even though we already got the reward for doing so. There's no real reason to do it, you don't get any additional rewards or anything, but I think the idea of this achievement is like a time challenge since you only have a limited time to find them all. But honestly, if you start from a fresh cycle and then slow down time with the inverted Song of Time, this one's not really difficult. By the time I collected the 45 fairies from the other 3 temples, it was just before night of the second day. So now we just have to clear our final temple, and that achievement will pop once we find all the fairies. The Stone Tower Temple is our last one, and it starts off with a really clever puzzle. Because shortly after entering, I got stuck for a good while not being able to find a small key that would let us progress. I must have ran around the temple dozens of times trying to find something that I missed, only to eventually realize what we're supposed to do is purposely get grabbed by this enemy, and then he tosses us up to a ledge that we're unable to get to on our own. To a more experienced player, that puzzle probably isn't all that impressive, but I really like the idea of using enemies like that. And aside from freezing some enemies in the Great Bay Temple, using enemies to traverse like this isn't something the game has done so far, so it caught me off guard. The rest of the temple is pretty much business as usual, up until our first mini-boss, the Garo Master. He attacks fast and is good at blocking attacks, so the key is to just be good at dodging him, and then hitting him after attack animations when he's vulnerable. We did fight a few smaller Garos by this point, so it's not too much different from those. Once we take him down, our prize is the light arrows, and this is when we get to experience the gimmick of this temple. Because once we make our way back outside the temple, we can shoot a light arrow at this crystal, and that causes the entire thing to be flipped upside down. So now when we go back into the temple, it's basically a whole new layout, and this is a pretty cool temple gimmick. But as I made my way through the temple again, I realized I spent a lot of time trying to figure out where that first small key I talked about was. And I wasn't exactly playing optimally for the rest of the temple, so by the time that I got to our second mini-boss, we only had about 15 in-game hours left, so I had to get a move on it. Gomez is a pretty scary looking boss for a Zelda game, but I really like his design. His giant scythe makes him look like the Grim Reaper, which is fitting for the whole death theme that Icona Valley has going on. Beating him isn't too difficult though. We just have to hit him with a light arrow to get rid of his bat shield, then attack him while he's stunned, and dodge his attack that he'll do right after. Then we just rinse and repeat that process a few times before he's defeated. So now that we have the boss key, we just have to make our way up to the boss room. And once again, I got a little lost and spent way too much time wandering around, until I realized the solution is the hook shot onto this upside down chest to get to the next door. But by now, it's 9 PM on the final day, so we really have to pick up the pace before the moon comes crashing down on us. Thankfully, we're at the final stretch now though. We just have one small fight against this guy who we defeat by shooting light arrows into his eye, and that gets us the Giant's Mask, which we'll use in this temple's boss fight against Twin Mold. The Giant's Mask lets us become a giant, which is a really cool idea, but this is literally the only time we get to use it, which makes this mask sort of useless. In fact, for our achievement for this boss fight, we can't even use it because we have to defeat Twin Mold without using mask or taking damage. But we do not have time to attempt that on this cycle, and like the other fights, it is best to do these achievements after beating the bosses normally once, so you can retry the fight faster if you fail. So for now, we'll just take out the boss by attacking its weak points, which is the tail and the head, and we can just spam our sword with the Giant's Mask to make this fight very easy. And once we take them both out, we pick up their remains to free the final giant. And then we head back into the temple to pick up the last few fairies that I missed. And we found the last one with just 5 hours to spare. And since we've gotten every fairy from each temple on this cycle, we get the Stray Fairy Savior achievement. All that's left to do now before restarting the cycle is paying a visit to the Icona Fairy Fountain to get our prize, which is the best prize in the game, the Great Fairy Sword. You thought the Gilded Sword was good? Well, the Great Fairy Sword does quadruple the damage of the Kokiri Sword, which will be very useful for our final boss fight coming up in just a little bit. But before we take on that challenge, it's time to reset the cycle and head back to the Stone Temple to defeat Twin Mold with no mask and no damage. And oh boy, is this one really difficult, and there's a bit of RNG involved, which makes it very frustrating. Without the Giant's Mask, Twin Mold is huge, and they both pop in and out of the ground, and dodging them almost feels completely up to luck. There's not much you can do if they decide to just appear from directly underneath you. The safest spot seems to be the center platform, because every time I step into the sand, I was getting hit way more often. But that's not to say that the center platform is 100% safe either. They can still hit you from there as well, so ultimately it feels like there's at least some luck involved here. The best way to attack them is using fire and ice arrows, which I was surprised to learn actually do more damage if you match their colors. So you want to shoot fire arrows at the blue one and ice arrows at the red one. The game never even hints at this being a thing, so it was pretty interesting to learn about. The elemental arrows will do 6 damage assuming you match the colors, so that means 4 arrows for each of them will defeat them. The red half has 1 less health than the blue one, so you can get away with 3 ice arrows and then 1 regular arrow. And regular arrows fire faster, so you can spam shots and make it a bit easier to hit. So ideally, you'll want to take him out first, but speed is key here because you want to minimize the time that they have to pop out underneath you. So I say just take whatever shot that you think you can hit. But that brings up another part of this challenge. You're gonna fail a lot, and to minimize the downtime, you want to make sure that you stay stocked up on arrows. There's nowhere outside the temple to farm them consistently, so after each failed attempt, make sure to refill your arrows by breaking the stone pillars in the boss arena. You can either wait for Twin Mold to break them, or just use the Giant's Mask and do it yourself. And of course, if it wasn't obvious, you also want to make sure that you have some Chateau Romani so you don't have to worry about filling up your magic. One last thing that you'll want is to stock up on fairies or red potions, because you do not want to hear the low heart beeping sound while you do this. Trust me, you have enough to worry about in this fight. Please, 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 please don't hit me! Please don't hit me, please! That was so close! Oh my god, that was so close. That was scary. I didn't like that. I am not having a good time right now. This is not fun. I do have one last tip for this fight. Right at the start, you can consistently get a free shot by listening closely to the music. Between the boss intro music and then the fight music, there's a small pause, and if you shoot your arrow right when the music pauses, you'll land a shot every time since that first guy always comes out of the ground in the same spot at the start of the fight. I'll play a clip of this now, really focus on the music to see what I'm talking about. With all that said, this achievement is still really difficult and really frustrating. In my opinion, the no damage part of it is heavily influenced by luck, and I think this achievement would have been way more fun without that. Honestly, they could have even made it more challenging if the achievement was to defeat him with no mask and only using regular arrows, because those do less damage, and the whole fun part of this achievement is trying to snipe the guy with arrows. So more of that and less praying for good luck would have made the achievement way more fun in my opinion. But after many attempts, we managed to pull it off, and finally we got this very difficult achievement. And now we're in the end game. We got our 4 temples cleared, which means the giants are all free, and if we wanted to, we can go face off against Skull Kid and beat the game. But before we do all that, it's time to do some cleanup. We still have some masks to get, plus the heart pieces, and a few miscellaneous achievements along the way. And we're starting with one that I actually got earlier, but I forgot to include it in the video, and that's for finding all 4 of the Zora eggs in the Pirate's Fortress in a single session without getting caught or using the stone mask. The Zora eggs can be recollected if you reset the cycle, so the easiest way to do this one is to come back when you have 4 bottles, so you only have to make 1 trip, but you can make multiple trips if you don't have enough bottles, which is what I did. Also, if you do end up doing this on a new 3-day cycle after you already cleared the Great Bay Temple, you can sell the Zora eggs at the Curiosity Shop back in Clocktown for 20 rupees a piece. You can sell literal babies on the black market in this game that's rated E for everyone. Next, I decided to do the Landy trading side quest, so we have to head back to the observatory and look through the telescope for another Moons Tier. Then we take that Moons Tier to the business scrub in Clocktown and exchange it for the title deed just like we did back in the prologue. Then we take that town land deed to the swamp and trade it to the business scrub there in exchange for the swamp land deed. And then we can use that flower to reach a piece of heart, and then we head to the Goron village for our next trade. The business scrub here sells big bomb bags, which we do need for an achievement, so I went ahead and bought that, and then traded him the swampland deed and used his flower to get to another piece of heart. Then we head over to Great Bay to trade the mountain deed to the business scrub that's located in Lulu's room in exchange for the ocean land deed. And then after grabbing that piece of heart, we headed to Icona Canyon to trade that land deed, except this time we now get 200 rupees instead of another land deed. The nut brown beauties are waiting. Excuse me? I didn't even know what he was talking about at first until somebody in my stream chat told me that he's referencing the Gerudo Pirates. The residents of Great Bay are not beating the Gunner allegations. After that was done, I decided to farm up the rest of our rupees. We need 5,000 for our final bank reward and an achievement, and there's plenty of ways to farm rupees in this game. The method I chose to do was doing Goron races. The gold dust that you win sells for 200 rupees at the Curiosity Shop back in Clocktown, and we already had about 3,000 rupees saved up by this point, so we didn't have too much to go. Admittedly, this isn't the most efficient way to farm rupees, but I like the Goron races, so I'm just doing a little bit of fun maxing. The quickest way to farm rupees is to use light arrows against the blue skulls. Doing so makes them drop 50 rupees a piece, and there's plenty of them in Termina Field at nighttime, so they're pretty easy to farm. There's also plenty of other mini games that you can farm for rupees, so just pick whichever one you enjoy doing, and once we deposit 5,000 rupees, we get our final bank reward, which is a piece of heart as well as another achievement. And now that we have so much money, I decided the next achievement to clean up would be for buying all of the maps from Tingle. We can find him flying around on a balloon in various locations all around Termina, and he sells us mini maps for all the different areas. He sometimes sells the same map in different locations, so you don't have to find every single balloon. So just keep your eye out for him whenever you see him and pick up whatever maps you don't currently have. And once we picked up the last map, we got our achievement. Then we wait until 10 PM on the final day because that's when you can buy the All-Nighters mask for 500 rupees. We can use this mask to talk to the grandma at the inn, but first we'll pick up a quick achievement for grabbing a bug from the inn's kitchen. And now that we've done some pest control, we can talk to the grandma who's currently arguing about not wanting to eat Anju's cooking. Which I don't blame her, there's bugs in that kitchen. I wouldn't want to eat there either. The grandma will tell us some stories, which is a way to pass the time in game. Normally Link will fall asleep through these stories, but with the all-night mask we can stay awake for them and learn some lore about the giants in Termina. After each story, grandma will give us a pop quiz to make sure that we paid attention, and after correctly answering her, we get a piece of heart and an achievement. And while we're at the inn, we can pick up another quick achievement for giving the ocean title deed to the toilet hand guy after midnight. Which does mean we had to go through the entire title deed quest again, and I'm not sure why this was even an achievement. There's no alternate dialogue or anything, so it's kind of an annoying detour, but I guess these are the kind of things that we do for achievements. Next, we started a pretty long side quest, and it begins at the mayor's office on the first day, where we have to talk to this lady who thinks that we're a private investigator she hired to find her missing son. So she gives us Kafei's mask to begin our investigation. Then we have to talk to Anju at the hotel while wearing this mask after 1:30 p.m. when she receives a letter from the missing Kafei. She asks us to meet her back here in the roach-infested kitchen later tonight because she has a clue about him. And while we're here, if we wait until 4 p.m, we can also talk to her in our Goron form, where apparently we'll have a reservation and we can get a room key to the knife chamber, which is a terrifying name for a hotel room. The reason we have this reservation is because another Goron with our same name happened to make one, so we pretty much just stole his room, but at least he's super chill about it. Our free room also comes with a complimentary 100 rupees, but there is a tear in the wallpaper and you can hear the next door neighbors arguing, so I have to give them a 1-star rating. While waiting to meet Anju, I decided to go for another quick achievement for getting your sword stolen by the big bird in Termina Field, and buying it back at the curiosity shop. The big bird can steal rupees, empty bottles, or your sword, so make sure that you fill your bottles with items and empty your wallet so that he takes your sword and not something else. Then we just have to visit the shop after 10 p.m. and buy the sword back for 50 rupees and we get our achievement. There's also some unique dialogue that you can see if you talk to the guards for the first time as a human after getting your sword stolen. That's not an achievement or anything, but I always like little details like this. Once the clock strikes midnight, we meet back up with Anju back at the inn, and she tells us about the letter she received from Kafei. She doesn't tell us what he said in the letter, but she gives us a letter that she wrote for him and asks us to deliver it for her. So we just have to pop that into any mailbox around town and wait for the next day for it to be delivered around 3 p.m. We hang out until then at the laundry pool, and once the letter is delivered by the postman, we see a guy that totally isn't Kafei wearing a mask come outside to get it. And while he's out, we can sneak into his house before he gets back. Once he returns, he does a big dramatic reveal and tells us that he is in fact Kafei. Surely this is the biggest plot twist of all time. You mean to tell me the guy who looks like Kafei, wearing a mask, who lives in Kafei's house, who receives mail addressed to Kafei, was in fact Kafei this whole time? He tells us that Skull Kid turned him into a child, but that's not the reason why he went into hiding. He's hiding because Sakan the thief stole his wedding mask that he was going to present to Anju, and he doesn't want to face her until he gets it back, which if you ask me, is not the bigger of the two problems. You can literally make another mask. I would think being turned into a child is the bigger issue here. But we'll play along with him for now for the sake of the quest. And he gives us a pendant to deliver to Anju. But before we drop that off, we can pick up another achievement by paying a visit to the post office. The postman is doing his mental training exercise and asks us if we want to try it. The goal is to count to exactly 10 seconds without looking at a clock. Normally, you'd want to wear the bunny hood for this minigame because that lets you cheat by seeing the clock and also giving you a little more room for error. But for an achievement, we have to do this minigame without using the bunny hood. And we have to get to 10 seconds on the dot. If we're even a few milliseconds off, we'll have to try again. So doing it this way is way harder. Luckily, the game only cost us 2 rupees a try, so we can try as many times as we want. And it did take me dozens of tries, but I had fun trying to do it this way. And eventually, we stopped the clock at exactly 10 seconds for our achievement. Then on the next day, we head back to the inn to deliver the pendant to Anju, which is what convinces her to stay in town and wait for Kafei instead of fleeing with her family. When we go back to his house to let him know, instead we find the curiosity shop owner who tells us that he's childhood friends with Kafei, and that he ran off to go confront the thief before giving us his Keaton mask, as well as a letter to deliver to Kafei's mother. But we're gonna deliver that letter later. For now, we head to Akana Canyon where we see Kafei waiting outside of Sakan's hideout. And we just have to sit here and hang out with him until he shows up at nighttime so we can follow him into his base. We find the wedding mask, but once Kafei steps on the switch in front of it, it activates a very convoluted security system where the mask starts going down a conveyor belt and we have to clear a series of puzzles before it reaches the end. If we fail, we're gonna have to redo this entire side quest on a new cycle, but as long as you don't screw up, you'll be fine. Push the why won't he push it? Why won't he push it? Oh, that it can only go left and right. I don't want to press the red one. I guess I got no choice. Oh god, it's going fast. Oh brother, that was not smart. That was not smart. Get it off, get it off, get it off. No! No, we fucked it up! God, no! I gotta do it all over again! No! Why did I do that? What? Am I stupid? I don't think I've ever failed this. No, she's not! Wow, you gave her the pendant, convinced her to stay in town. She's gonna die. So he just dies? That's it? That's the end? Sucks for him. As much as I want to say that I did that on purpose for the sake of content because we have to do this side quest twice anyway, that was a genuine blunder on my part. The authorities are on their way to revoke my gamer license as we speak. But like I said, we do have to do this side quest twice, so this wasn't a huge deal. And the reason we have to do this twice is because of that letter that we're supposed to deliver to Kafei's mother. If we talk to the postman during the final hours, we see that he's conflicted about fleeing town even though it's not on the schedule. We can give him the letter to deliver to Kafei's mother, who also happens to be the postmaster for the town, and upon receiving it, she tells him to forget the schedule and abandon town. I mean, he's only got like 4 minutes left, so it's not like he can get that far away, but he does give us his postman's hat before leaving. And we can use that mask to grab another piece of heart from any of the mailboxes in town. However, when we do this quest again, instead of giving the letter to the postman, we can deliver it directly to Kafei's mother ourselves. And she'll give us a bottle of Chateau Romani, which does nothing for us since we're minutes away from the moon crashing, but that is another empty bottle for us. So since we need both of these rewards for 100% completion, that's why we have to do this side quest twice. And this time we don't completely fumble the hideout puzzles, so Kafei is able to get his mask back, and if we wait at the inn until the final hour, we can watch Anju and Kafei reunite, and despite the Skull Kid turning him into a child, they still decide to exchange their wedding mask and spend their final moments together. A very serious moment that's ruined by Link wearing his stupid cow mask during the cutscene. But since we were here to witness the exchange, they give us the couple's mask before we hit the reset button and start a new cycle. And with the couple's mask, we can interrupt the argument happening at the mayor's office on day 1 and remind everybody what's really important at a time like this. And the mayor decides to end the arguing and gives us a piece of heart as a prize. We can also use that Keaton mask that we got earlier by spin attacking this patch of grass and summoning a Keaton who will ask us a few questions about the game. And if we answer all of his questions correctly, we get another piece of heart and an achievement. For our next achievement, we'll get it from playing the Honey and Darling minigames. You get a different game on each day, and we'll get a heart piece and an achievement for winning all 3 of them. We can do these games once we obtain the bow, bombs, and bomb chews, so we could have done these a long time ago, but I just didn't, so we're doing them now. And once we clear all 3 of the minigames, we get our achievement. And our next achievement is going to be for clearing the hidden shrine in Akana Canyon, which is located behind the waterfall. And you can access it as long as you have 16 heart containers and the light arrows. Inside the shrine, we get a boss rush of various mini-bosses that we fought throughout the game. Because they're salty they've been defeated and their spirits can't move on. I mean, if I was a mini-boss who died to a single sword attack, I'd also have regrets, so it's pretty understandable. I mean, it took me longer to write this joke into the script than it did to beat these guys. I do wish the bosses were a bit different at least, but for the most part, it's the same fights just in a different room. But I guess it was a good chance to learn some more effective ways to fight some of these guys, like how the Deku Nuts are extremely good at taking out the eyeball guy's bubbles. After our boss rush is done, we grab a reward, which is a piece of heart and another achievement. And speaking of which, after checking the bomber's notebook, I realized I was only 1 entry away from completing that, which is another one of our achievements. And at first I thought something was wrong because the last entry that we needed was from the grandma, and we did listen to both her stories, so I thought the game just didn't update the notebook or something. But then I learned you actually get another piece of heart from her if you answer one of her questions wrong. She's so nice that she gives you a prize whether you were paying attention or not. So we just had to answer one of her questions wrong on purpose, and once we did that, we got another piece of heart and the achievement for clearing the bomber's notebook. We're just about done with our cleanup run, so I decided to get the rest of the heart pieces that we missed. I've covered a few of them throughout the video, but now that we're near the end, I needed to start looking up the locations of the other ones. Unfortunately, the game doesn't keep track of these for you, so when you're looking at a guide, you pretty much have to remember which ones you've already gotten. For a few of them, you'll have to set up a Scarecrow song, which you can do at the shop in town. Just play him any 8 notes that you'll remember, and you'll be able to use that song for the duration of the cycle. The Scarecrow can be hookshotted onto, so he's useful for getting to a few of these heart pieces. One of our heart pieces requires the Dongero's mask that we got from that Goron back in Snowfall. We can use this mask to talk to some frogs, and once we convince them all to meet us at the mountains during springtime, we'll get another heart piece. And we can find these frogs at the laundry pool in Clocktown, on a log in the swamp, in both the Gecko mini boss rooms in both Woodfall and Great Bay Temple, and the last one's on a lily pad in the mountain village, but only during springtime, so we'll have to beat God again in order to see him. Once all the frogs are reunited, we get our heart piece. A very long side quest for just one heart piece, but I guess it's faster than saving up 5,000 rupees. For another one, we have to do this timed combat minigame in Akana Valley where we have to fight against the Post Sisters, who make a return from the last game. And you're not allowed to use masks for this one, but you can start the battle while wearing one, so I was stuck fighting them while wearing the frog mask, which doesn't really hinder us, but I thought it was kind of funny. Apparently you can also soft lock yourself if you start this while wearing the Goron mask, because you'll have no way of damaging the purple Post Sister at the end. Finding the rest of the heart pieces for the most part wasn't too bad, but I was stuck on my last few. I knew 4 of them were going to come from the final area before our fight against Skull Kid, but that still left 2 that I was missing. And I combed through the guide that I was using a dozen times, and I swore I did everything. But I eventually realized that the 2 that I was missing was from the bow shooting minigames. I did do these way earlier in the run, but I only did them once, which got us the quiver upgrades. Apparently doing them a second time gets you a heart piece, so once we did those again, we got our 19th heart container, and with our last 4 located in the final boss area, we're done hunting these down for now. Before we move on, we just have 2 more achievements to clean up, and I'm not really a fan of these ones. The first one is for bringing 6 big Poes to the graveyard on the final day, so before we do that, we have to get our 6th bottle, which coincidentally is also located in the graveyard on the final day. And to get it, we have to do a little digging minigame with Dompe, where he'll follow us around and dig with his shovel if we lead him to a dirt patch. And I like Dompe and all, but his digging minigame was so annoying in Ocarina of Time, and it's even more annoying now because we have to lead him to an elevator for a few of the dig spots. But once we dig up 3 of the blue flames, we get a fight against another Poe, who we defeat just like any other one by shooting him with arrows, and our prize for defeating him is our final empty bottle. But now for that achievement, we have to bring 6 big Poes to the graveyard, and to get 6 of these, you have to head to the bottom of the well and do this mini boss fight 6 times. Once you defeat and capture the big Poe, you can just leave the room and re-enter to start a new fight, and you just do that 6 times until you have 6 Poes in your bottles. Then you just step foot in the graveyard and that's kind of it. There's no in-game reason to do this. You don't get a reward or a cutscene or any special dialogue, it's just kind of a random achievement for no purpose. And what's really weird is this isn't even the only achievement like this. Our next achievement is Gifts for Majora, which requires us to bring specific items with us before heading to our final battle. And again, there's no in-game purpose for this. I even asked around on the forums in case I was missing something, and nobody had a good explanation for these achievements. Some people think it's a way to check if you have all 6 bottles, but surely there could have been an achievement for having 6 bottles without all this, and even if that was the case, I'd have to wonder why are there 2 achievements like this? I guess it does give you a reason to use the Mask of Sense to find mushrooms, which is something you don't really ever do in this game. Normally you'd sell these mushrooms to the potion shop, but there are far better money making methods, so that feature goes mostly unused, so I guess that's kind of a good reason. And I'm not saying that you can't have random silly achievements, not every achievement has to be some kind of hardcore challenge, but I think these 2, plus the one that requires us to get another ocean land deed for the toilet guy, is a bit overkill. And what really baffles me is there used to be another achievement for letting your time run out and having the moon come crashing down. And that achievement got demoted for violating the unwelcome concept, specifically the playing poorly without purpose rule. But I would argue getting to see an exclusive cutscene, which is the bad ending that you might not otherwise see, is a valid purpose. So I have no idea why that achievement is considered ban-worthy, but achievements like this that serve no purpose aren't. Not that I'm asking for these achievements to be banned or anything, at the end of the day it's not really that big of a deal, but I'm trying to wrap my head around the reasoning here. So I guess feel free to let me know down in the comments if you agree or disagree with me here. But now that we've collected all of our offerings, it's time to finally move on to the final area of the game. So we head to the top of the clock tower to confront Skull Kid one more time, and this time we can play the Oath to Order to summon the 4 giants that we freed. And I was so proud of myself that I actually remembered the song after all this time, because you learn it way back when you clear the first temple and literally never use it up until now. So maybe I can get my gamer license back after all. With the power of the 4 giants, we're able to stop the moon from crashing. Tail tries to give us some sob story about how Skull Kid was lonely and it was the mask that made him evil, which is 100% not true. He was literally robbing people before ever finding the mask. Like, why is the game trying so hard to make me sympathize with this guy? I mean, yeah, the mask is evil, as we can clearly see that it decided to ditch the Skull Kid and go inside the moon to try to force it to crash. So I'm not denying that the mask probably had some influence there, but like at the end of the day, you only had the mask in the first place because you stole it, so I don't really feel all that bad for Skull Kid. But we don't have time to point fingers here. We have to stop Majora's Mask, so we head into the moon to chase after him for our final showdown. Oh yeah, and we got that achievement for collecting all the things before doing that, I guess. Before taking on the final boss, we're able to give our masks to the children who are running around here who look like the mask salesman wearing the mask of the 4 bosses that we defeated. If we give them enough masks, they'll let us take on a small challenge room that's themed around the 4 areas of Termina. It's left, left, right, left. That is the heart piece path. Okay, well, you went the wrong way, Link. Do I get a second try here? Oh, there it is. Hey, oh, look at that. I went the wrong way, but I still managed to do it. Okay, hey, that's pretty cool. In each of these challenge rooms, we can find a piece of heart, which will get us an achievement, and once we reach the end, we'll have to give some more masks away before we get hit with some philosophical questions. I wonder, what makes you happy? Does it make others happy too? Well, I mean, I'm happy when I'm posting my videos, so you guys let me know down in the comments if that makes you happy too. My favorite one is the one that's themed around the mountain. It has a very fun platforming course with the Goron rolling, and it totally works 100% of the time, and you don't ever get killed to random jank. This room did take me a few attempts because I'm playing on an Xbox controller using an emulator, which makes staying straight harder since it doesn't have the notches that the Nintendo 64 controller has. But it was still tons of fun, and eventually we made it through, and we of course got the heart piece along the way for another achievement. For the Woodfall themed course, we had to do some platforming as a Deku Scrub, and we had to make a short detour to the right near the end of the room, and that gets us to the heart piece. And then the last room I did was the Icona Valley inspired room, which is another boss rush that we are extremely over prepared for, so we just breezed through this. Oh buddy, I got bad news for you, man. I got the fairy sword. That means you die in one hit. There you go, buddy. Good job. You did it. You did really good. It was a good fight. I'm just better at the game. What can I tell you? The Great Fairy Sword is honestly so busted. Not only does it do so much damage, but it has a crazy long range. We could take out this Iron Knuckle without it even getting close enough to do any damage. And since this room has our last heart piece, we got a 2-for-1 on achievements since we get 1 for completing all 20 hearts, as well as the 1 for finding this specific heart piece. And now that we've given away all of our masks, we get a special prize before the final fight, the Fierce Deities mask. And I'm so conflicted on how I feel about this mask because on one hand, it's really cool and it transforms Link into an absolute powerhouse. I mean, just look at how easily we're going through the final fight. A couple ranged sword attacks and boom, game over, we win. I'm not even exaggerating, that is how fast the final fight goes with this mask. This thing is so powerful that they had to restrict it to only boss fights, and it's really cool, but it sort of trivializes the fights, so I kind of prefer not to use it when I play this game casually. But that also kind of sucks because you have to collect every mask in the game in order to get it, so I want to use the big prize, but at the same time I do want the final boss fight to be more of a challenge. And that's where retro achievements comes into play, because we of course have an achievement for beating Majora's Mask without using any masks and without taking damage. So a challenge is exactly what we're gonna get. And this one achievement took me an entire 4-hour stream to complete. This was one of the hardest things I've ever done on this channel. So to start, let's break down the fight, because without the Fierce Deity mask, we have to actually do the fight this time. In the first phase, Majora flies around us and goes in for some swooping attacks, and we have to stun him with an arrow, which is easier said than done because getting the angle right is pretty difficult since you can only hit him from the backside. Ideally, you want to get directly underneath him as he's charging up an attack, and that's when the mask goes kind of horizontal and lets you get a small angle on the underside. It's a pretty difficult shot, but the good news is once we get the stun, we only need 1 jump attack with the Great Fairy Sword to move on to phase 2. In the second phase, the 4 remains masks on the walls join the party, and they'll fly around and occasionally shoot beams of light at us. Majora's Mask will also occasionally fire laser beams at us too, which we can reflect with the mirror shield to either damage it or the other masks. Arrows also work on the flying mask, and I think it's best to try to take them all out first. It does take a bit longer, and when you have to replay this fight 100 times, you might be tempted to start looking for shortcuts, but I really think it's best to take them all out first so you can focus on Majora. Once you do take them out, the easiest way to inflict damage is to use your mirror shield to reflect the laser beams back at Majora's Mask. And you want to make sure that you're free shielding those instead of using the Z targeting so you can direct the beam. But if you do catch yourself reflecting a beam while Z targeting, do not cancel the Z target, as that will lead to you taking a hit. Once you reflect a few beams, it's time for phase 3, and this is where RNG unfortunately can kill your run, because there's a small chance that he'll start attacking immediately after the cutscene, and there's not much you can do to avoid that. It doesn't happen all that often, so as long as he doesn't do it, once you get your bearings, you should be fine. If he does do the rapid fire attack on you, you can't just block it with your shield because there's a good chance that one of them will break through and damage you. So if he does that attack, hold your shield up and start spamming jumps to the right or left to try to sidestep them. Aside from that, this phase is the quickest and easiest one. He'll run around super fast, but just hit him with an arrow or your sword to knock him down, and then if you spam spin attacks while he's knocked down, you might even stun lock him and deal enough damage to go right into the final phase. His laser beam attack is the only thing you have to worry about. He pretty much just goofs around for the rest of the phase. For the final phase, this is where all hell breaks loose. He attacks with 2 giant whips, and you can block the whipping attacks and his spin attacks just fine, but he also has this grab attack that cannot be blocked, and if he does that move, it's pretty much game over. Oh my god, he's throwing me and catching me before I land! Chill! Jesus! On top of all this, once you deal some damage to him, he starts throwing out these spinning tops of doom, and those are incredibly difficult to deal with while trying to dodge his whips. It is possible to stun lock him though. Once you hit him with a light arrow and get an attack in, if you time the attacks just right, it's possible to keep hitting him with your sword without him getting up. Personally, I couldn't pull that off consistently, at least not consistently enough to do the entire fight this way. The timing was really difficult for me, but it's something worth practicing to see if you can get it down. Aside from that, this phase takes the most luck and skill of the entire fight. You want to move fast to minimize the risk of him pulling out the grab attack, but not too fast that you get careless and take some damage. And that pretty much summarizes the challenge, but talking about it is way easier than actually doing it. This was such a difficult challenge, and around the 3-hour mark, I was really debating if it was even gonna be possible for me. But I was determined to stick it out until we got the win. For the sake of faster resets, you want to make sure that you go into this fight with only 3 hearts, because you can't use your Ocarina like the other boss fights, so to reset you have to die. And you obviously won't die quickly if you have full health. You can also get arrows from these pots at the start of the fight before the first cutscene, so make sure you remember to do that to keep your arrows refilled. This is also one of those times where using save states to practice is a really good idea. For those who don't know, on retro achievements, save states are disabled because they don't want you to use save states to work around challenges like these, obviously. However, you can create save states, you just can't load them while the achievements are enabled. But you can disable the achievements and then load your save states in order to practice each phase without having to work your way back up to them. So practicing all the phases is a very good idea before trying to do it all together in one run. With all that said, this achievement is just incredibly difficult. I would argue it's one of the hardest achievements in the run, probably one of the hardest achievements I've done on my channel, but after 4 hours of trying, we finally got the win. There we go, hey! Is that a way to like instantly get him out of phase 1? That might be nice. I didn't wait for him to spin, I just kind of spammed him a little bit and it worked. Woo! Barely turned around fast enough for that. That was dicey. Alright, roll the dice, Link. I'll take it nice and slow. Once you got him targeted, you're fine. Like, the dodging that laser attack is so much easier. Once you have him targeted. Wait for him to do, like, a better animation that's, like, easier to hit. That was the most aggressive lasers he's done. He's never done lasers like that aggressively before. That was crazy. Nah, it's too far away. Yes! Woo! Baby, we got him! Holy sh! No way! Woo! Oh, it took us 4 hours almost! Oh, we did it! We're good! We're in the home stretch! Oh, man! Yeah, that achievement wasn't so bad, actually. All that complaining I did, kind of take it all back. Very easy achievement, actually. Very doable. If you can't do it, you just have skill issues. Yo, Spectre, thank you for becoming a member! Whoa! We just got 10 gifted memberships from Dragoon. Dragoon, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. With that done, all that's left now to do is to watch the credits roll and wait for our achievement to pop. This was such an insane challenge, but I had a ton of fun with it. And I definitely have a new appreciation for this boss fight, because I've never done it without using any masks. Normally, I would use the Zora boomerangs to stun the flying Majora's Mask, which is way easier than trying to find the right angle with arrows. So this was a very fun experience, despite how difficult it was. Once the credits are done, we got our achievement for the Damageless Majora fight. And we also got another achievement earlier when I beat him the first time, just for beating the game normally. And now we have just one final challenge ahead of us. Well, technically 2 challenges, but we're gonna try to combine them into one run. And these achievements are for beating the game without collecting any heart containers, and then we have the infamous 3-day challenge where we have to beat the game without using the Song of Time to reset the cycle. And we have to do this on a brand new save file, so not only do we have to beat the 4 temples, but we'll have to re-earn all of our items and repeat all the steps required to even unlock the temples. And we're going to be attempting to do all that while also not collecting any heart containers to try to stack both these achievements. Now, if you're a speedrunner for this game who knows a bunch of crazy glitches and exploits, then this challenge might not seem like a big deal. But I am not a speedrunner, so this was looking like it was gonna be a very difficult challenge. But instead of going into it completely blind, I did my homework and watched a few other people who've done this challenge and took some notes and came up with a game plan before my first attempt. So with that preparation, plus the fact that I was still riding that high of defeating Majora Damageless, I was pretty confident I could pull this off. So to start, we delete both our save files and begin a brand new game. We do have to play through the prologue where we're stuck as a Deku Scrub, but the challenge doesn't start until we get our human form back. But we can still do a little prep work before then. If we head into East Clocktown, we can walk backwards on the right side of this guard, and that lets us slip past him so we can get into Termina Field early. But if you're thinking we're gonna get to do some huge time saves by doing this, unfortunately there's not much we can do at the moment. There's not even any enemies in Termina Field because they don't spawn until we get our Ocarina back. But what we can do is farm some rupees so we can get our first wallet upgrade from the bank. Granted, we don't have to break out of town to do this, but it is a bit faster, and the trick is easy enough to do. In either case, once we deposit 200 rupees, we get our wallet upgrade, and at that point, we're pretty much done with the prologue. So we just have to sit and wait until the third day to get our Ocarina back from Skull Kid, and then we play the Song of Time to officially start our 3-day challenge. And the first day is the most difficult day in the entire run, because we have a lot to do and not a lot of time to do it. And it mostly revolves around Epona, because we need her to get into Great Bay and Akana Valley. But to get to Epona, we have to break this boulder before nighttime, and to do that, we need a powder keg. But to get a powder keg, we need fire arrows to melt this chunk of ice blocking the Goron who gives us the license to use powder kegs, and in order to get the fire arrows, we'll have to play through the Snowhead Temple. Which means we also have to get the Goron's Mask from Darmani and learn the Goron's Lullaby from the Elder Sun. And before we can do any of that, we'll have to get the Hero's Bow from Woodfall Temple, which means we're gonna have to do the whole Deku Palace quest. And we have to get all of this done before night of the first day, otherwise Romani won't be outside the farm in order to teach us Epona's song. So needless to say, we have our work cut out for us. The first thing we do is play the inverted Song of Time to slow down the clock. Then we talk to the mask salesman to get our human form back, and then head to the bank to withdraw 100 rupees so we can buy the bomb bag with enough left over for another purchase that we'll make later. Then we head to Termina Field to make our way towards the swamp, and you'll notice I'm using the Deku form and spamming spin attacks because we move a little bit faster this way. Before going to the swamp, we can make a quick detour to Milk Road to activate this owl statue so we can warp to it later. Then we head to the swamp and make our way through the Lost Woods to rescue the witch. We don't have to waste time following the monkey since we know what the path is, which is left, right, straight, left, and left. So we can just follow that path and it saves us time not having to wait for the monkey. Once we talk to the witch, we head to the potion shop to get the red potion, and then we have to do that forest path again to give it to her. Then we take the boat ride to the Deku Palace, sneak around the right path to get to the bean guy, and we're gonna buy 6 beans from him. One of them we're gonna use to get to the upper Deku Palace path so we can get to the monkey, and the other 5 are for the bottom of the well in Ikana Canyon. Then we talk to the monkey to learn the Song of Awakening, then we learn the Song of Soaring on the way up to Woodfall Temple, and then we head into the temple to get the Hero's Bow. And this is also a good time to make a backup owl save if you feel like you've been making good time. As I explained earlier, you can make backup saves by saving an owl statue, and then copying that save to file 2, that way when you reload your owl statue, you'll still have another one to fall back on. If you make it to the Woodfall Temple before 11 AM, I would say it's definitely worth making a backup save. From here, we play through the Woodfall Temple as normal up until we reach the room with the first mini-boss. He can quickly be taken out by stunning him with a Deku Nut and then a single jump attack with the Deku Stick. And once he's defeated, we can pick up the Hero's Bow, and now we're done with this temple for now. Ideally, you want to be done with this part before 12 PM. I was running just a few seconds behind schedule, but I decided to stick with it. If you do manage to finish before 12 PM, this would be another good time for an owl backup save. Now that we have the Hero's Bow, we can clear the way to the mountains, and now we have to get the Goron Mask. We can save a little bit of time here if we pay a visit to the Goron City on our way to get the Lens of Truth. We can open the door by talking to this Goron, and then we just have to talk to the crying baby so that later we can get the Goron Lullaby intro from the Elder. After that, we jump across the invisible platforms to get to the Lens of Truth, and once we talk to Darmani, he'll ask us to follow him, but we don't have to do that. It's much faster to instead play the Song of Soaring to warp to the owl statue in the mountain village. It turns out we don't have to follow him at all. He'll still be waiting for us outside the hot springs regardless, so this is a huge time save. Once we get the Goron Mask, we grab some hot spring water to go melt the Goron Elder to learn the Lullaby's intro. Then we head back to Goron City to learn the rest of the song from the Elder's Son. And with that, we can play the song to clear the path to Snowhead Temple. I would say that if you get here before 2 PM, then it's a good idea to make an owl save backup. But I knew that I was behind schedule a bit, so I decided not to make any backup saves because it would suck to make one, only to realize I didn't have enough time to get to Epona. And if that happened, I'd have to start the entire run over. But this way, if I fail, I only have to go back to Woodfall Temple. There probably is a way to like copy your save file to another folder on your computer to make a third owl save backup, but the last time I messed with memory files like that was my Yu-Gi-Oh! Forbidden Memories video, and somehow that corrupted my entire save. So I wasn't about to take that risk here. From here, we have to play through the Snowfall Temple up until we reach the fire arrows. There is a small time save that we can do in this puzzle room where instead of hitting all the switches, we can do a bomb jump, which is super easy to do. Just place a bomb behind you and face the direction you want to jump, and the blast from the bomb will send Link further than a normal jump. So we're able to make it across the gap and skip the entire puzzle. It's a very easy trick and you don't even have to touch the thumbstick. Just drop the bomb, face the right direction, and let the game take it from there. Once we defeat the Wizrobe and get the fire arrows, we leave the temple and head back to Goron Village to melt the ice block leading to the powder keg guy. We talk to him to take his test, which is to walk the powder keg all the way to the rock block in the Goron races, and we have less than an hour left by the end of it, so I was definitely stressing out at this point. Oh god, the bells! They toll for thee! Oh no! Hurry up, get my bomb! With seconds left on the clock, I warped back to Milk Road, blew up the giant rock, and rolled as fast as I could toward Epona. And we just barely made it in time to talk to Romani. Once we're speaking with her, the hardest part of the run is officially over. Time doesn't progress during that conversation, so even if you talk to her with a single second left in the day, you're good. And despite me feeling like I was cutting it really close, I actually had just enough time to go race the Gorman brothers and get the Garo's mask. Which we don't have to do now, but it's just one more thing that we can check off our list. No, not down, no! Talk to the guy! Oh, brother. Talk to the guy! Oh my god, like the last second! If you manage to get to Epona on the first day, then you 1000% want to make sure to make a backup save here. Even if you think you could have been faster, the run does become significantly easier from here, so you'll have plenty of room for errors. Now that said, I did end up failing on this run. This was my first time attempting this challenge for real, and I made just one too many mistakes. I got lost for a bit in the Great Bay Temple, and I was dying to a lot of fights because of the 3-heart challenge. I really underestimated a lot of the harder fights, and I opted not to get the Gilded Sword, which is something I've never done before, and I never realized just how bad the Kokiri Sword is. I ended up running out of time right as I got to the Light Arrow mini-boss in the Stone Temple, but for our first attempt, honestly, I don't think this was that bad. And it made me confident that I could pull off this challenge now that I got a practice run in to work out the kinks. But it felt like a shame to waste the run when we were so close to the end, so I decided in order to make my life easier, I would finish out this run on a new cycle, which obviously negates the 3-day challenge, but it allowed me to finish the game with only 3 hearts. So on my next attempt, I could pick up a few heart containers to make some of the boss fights easier. So with that decided, I played through the rest of the game, defeated Majora one more time, and after the credits roll, we got our 3 heart run achievement. Then after that, we reload our backup save to continue our 3-day run from the point where we rescued Epona on the first day. We head back to Clocktown to pick up a red potion, and we take that into Akana Valley to give it to the Invisible Guard in exchange for the Stone Mask, which isn't a required mask, but it does make our lives a whole lot easier. Next we head to the graveyard because we have to learn the Song of Storms, and that can only be done on the first night, so we have to do the boss fight against Captain Kita. Without the Gilded Sword, our best way to deal damage is with the Goron's Mask, so I just stunned him with Deku Nuts and then punched him with the Goron's Mask and just kept doing that until he was defeated. Normally you would use the hook shot to get to that chest with the Captain's Hat, but we can just jump from the railing instead to make it across. And now that we have the Captain's Hat, we can open up the grave, and the Stone Mask will allow us to ignore the bats, which lets us clear this room much faster. Then we have to fight an Iron Knuckle, and since I still only had 3 hearts, this was a pretty scary fight because it only takes one single hit for us to die here. But we managed to defeat him with our pro gaming skills, learn the Song of Storms, and now we're done with Akana Valley for now. Then we head back to Snowhead Temple to finish that up and get our first boss defeated, and I don't know what was going on, but this was the sloppiest god fight ever. I even ended up dying to him once, but thankfully I had a bottled fairy, so we're able to bounce back. I think I was just getting nervous because this was a pretty good run, but I might end up getting my gamer license revoked after all. I did manage to eventually defeat him, but we lost a lot more time here than I would have liked to. But like I said earlier, after the first day, you do have some room for error, so I didn't feel like we had to reset to our last backup save. After collecting God's remains, we free our first giant and learn the Oath to Order, and then we head to Great Bay to save the drowning Zora and get the Zora's mask. Then we activate the owl statue near the laboratory so we can come back here later, and we warp back to the farm to fight some aliens. My stream chat recommended instead of riding Epona to simply stand on this box, and I will say this was way easier. I never realized doing this while riding Epona is much harder, but I think it's the more fun way to do the side quest, so I'll probably continue to do it that way. But for this challenge run, I am very happy to try some easier strategies. After defeating the aliens, we get our second bottle, so now it's time to head back to Great Bay and get the Zora eggs and the hookshot from the Pirates Fortress. And the stone mask makes this part way faster since we don't have to sneak around the pirates. I also learned a pretty easy strategy for fighting the pirate leaders, and that's to alternate between the Deku Scrub and the Goron forms. The Deku Scrub can stun them with a spin attack, and then the Goron deals more damage than our Kokiri sword. So by doing this, we can get through these fights pretty easily. I had to make 2 trips for the 4 eggs that are in the Pirate's Fortress, and before going for the other 3 eggs at Pinnacle Rock, I decided to grab a 3rd bottle so I wouldn't have to make 2 trips there as well. And the bottle I chose to get was for the Beaver race since we just got the hookshot. So I raced the 2 Beaver brothers, got the 3rd bottle, and then headed to Pinnacle Rock for the other 3 eggs. I did also make sure to grab a pirate photo for the fisherman guys so we can get the seahorse, and I know we don't technically have to do that. If you memorize the correct path, you can just do it yourself, but this only took an extra second to do, so I felt it was worth it. Once we got the 3 eggs, we head back to the laboratory to go learn the new wave Bossa Nova, so now we can access the Great Bay Temple. But I was planning to go back to Romani Ranch at nighttime to do the Cremia side quest, and we didn't have enough time to clear the temple, so instead of going in there, I just activated the owl statue so we can warp back here, and since I had a few minutes to kill, I decided to go hunt down some easy heart pieces. One of our heart pieces was from the photo contest back in the swamp, and I always thought that you needed a picture of the Deku King to get the heart piece, but you can also use a photo of Tingle as well, because it turns out the guy who runs the contest is Tingle's dad. And while we're learning new things here, you can also use a Goron Pound to get to the heart piece on the roof and skip having to do the land D trade for it. In total, I was able to get 2 extra heart containers during our downtime, which was pretty good. But now it's time to warp back to Milk Road and catch a ride with Cremia. We defend her milk jugs from the Gorman brothers, and we got the Romani's mask so we can get some Chateau Romani once the bar opens, which is useful since we're not rescuing lost fairies, so our magic meter isn't getting upgraded. We do have a few hours before the bar opens, so I decided to use that time to knock out the Woodfall Temple. We can save a little bit of time in the room before the boss fight by using the hookshot to skip having to go through all the Deku flowers. Then we just have to fight Adola, which gets us our second boss remains. It wasn't the fastest fight, but that was 2 temples down, so we're making some steady progress. After that, I head to the milk bar to get our Chateau Romani so we don't have to worry about running out of magic for the rest of the run, and now it's time to clear the Great Bay Temple. And there's a huge time-saving trick we can do here which lets us skip an entire mini-boss fight and get the boss key early. To do it, we drop a bomb on this 3rd square on the ground, then we stand facing the edge, put on our Zora mask, and Z-target before the bomb goes off. And that lets us bomb jump and grab the ledge leading to the boss key chest. It's a little bit harder than our last bomb jump that we did, but it's a really big time saver, so it's worth trying to do. You don't have to input any directions on the control stick or try to time the bomb explosion or anything. The most important thing is your placement. Make sure you put the bomb on the 3rd square, face the correct direction, and hold Z targeting, and you should be fine. This was my first time learning this trick, and I managed to pull it off after 2 or 3 tries, so it's not all that difficult. From there, we just have to run through the rest of the temple as normal, and we wrapped up the temple just after the 3rd day started. So that leaves us with a full 24 hours to wrap up the final area, so I was feeling pretty good about the run. Before that though, we have to head back to Clocktown to buy some items that we'll need for the bottom of the well. So I grab some Deku nuts as well as a fish from the water next to us. Then we grab a powder keg from the bomb shop for Arcana Castle. And the last thing that we need is some milk, which we can grab from this grotto in Termina Field underneath the log. There is milk available at the bottom of the well, but by getting it now, it will save us having to go through a few doors. Once we have everything we need, we make our way to Ocarina Canyon, play the Song of Storms for Flat's brother to get the water flowing, and then we get the Gibdo mask from the researcher before heading to the bottom of the well to do our trading quest. And once that's all done, we pick up the Mirror Shield and head to Ocarina Castle. Our Deku-Goron combo works pretty good during the boss fight here against the king and his lackeys. Honestly, I wish I knew about this trick during my first run because I struggled a bit with this fight on the 3-heart run, but doing it this way makes things way easier. Once we defeat him and learn the Elegy of Emptiness, we start our Stone Tower climb and we reach the top by 1 PM, which gives us plenty of time to clear the final temple. Especially since we learned some crazy good skips that we can do to clear it even faster. The first one blew my mind because apparently you can use spring water to melt this big sunblock to open up this shortcut early. Apparently the reason why this works is because the spring water and the light arrow share the same properties, but the only reason we're able to do it on this specific light block is because there's a small ledge that raises us up, which lets us pour the water on the hitbox. Any other block without this boost and the water wouldn't be able to connect with the hitbox. And that skip lets us save a good chunk of time since we don't have to go through the first few rooms. We can just go backwards now to the room before this and use that enemy to get on the ledge with a small key. And from there we proceed as normal up into the room with the light arrows. Once we beat the Garo Master and get the light arrows, we can flip the temple upside down, and then we have another trick that lets us basically skip the entire second half of this temple. Once we make our way to this room, we can head through this tunnel with a switch that spawns a chest with a small key. Then we can take out the hand enemy over the wall using a bomb, and if we line ourselves up at an angle with the Deku mask, we can jump off the ledge and land on the platform beneath us. And it's crazy how easy this skip is to do, but it lets us skip the entire second half of the temple. That door that we landed in front of leads us right to the room with the boss key. We enter this temple around 1 PM and just 4 hours later it's almost done. And there's one more big skip that we can do, because once we get the boss key and leave the way we came, we can actually fight the Igor that gives us the Giant's Mask from down here. It's a difficult shot, but if you hit him just right, you can defeat him, and then if you stand on this ramp towards the back edge closest to the door, you can just barely get your hook shot to connect to the chest with the Giant's Mask, which skips having to walk the long way around. I mean, honestly, we're making such great time anyway, so these skips aren't necessary, but what fun is a speedrun challenge if you don't try to learn a few time saves along the way? And honestly, from here, we're home free. We just have to defeat Twin Mold, and we have infinite magic, so we can use the Giant's Mask to make that fight really easy. Though, personally, I think it's more fun trying to shoot him with arrows, so I think that's the way I'm going to be doing this fight from now on. And once we defeat Twin Mold and grab his remains, we have nothing left to do except wait for the clock tower to open so we can fight Majora's Mask. We ended up finishing with almost half a day to spare, and that's with plenty of mistakes along the way. After you do the first day, this challenge gives you a lot of wiggle room, which makes it not as bad as it seems. And what I really like about it is there's so many ways that you can go about this. I decided not to rescue any lost fairies or get the Gilded Sword, but I've seen other players do that during their runs while skipping things like Chateau Romani. So really, after the first day, there's a lot of ways you can route your run to better fit your playstyle, which I think makes this such a fun challenge and a great way to wrap up this achievement set. And since time doesn't pass on the moon, all we have left to do now is to fight against Majora's Mask for one final time. And I actually had a little bit of a rough time with that because I ended up wasting a bunch of arrows during the second phase out of habit, and I forgot I didn't have the upgraded quivers, so I ran out of arrows and had to use the Zora Boomerang to try to stun him in the final phase, which makes things a bit harder. I did learn though, if he grabs us with the whip, we can use our magic shield attack, which stuns him just as good as light arrows, and I was so happy to realize we have a counter to that stupid grab move that caused us so much trouble in the damageless fight. And once we defeated him for the third and final time, we just have to watch the credits roll, and once that's done, our achievement pops and we've officially completed our 3-day challenge. That just leaves us with one final achievement, which I saved for last, and that is to let the moon crash. Yeah, that achievement that got demoted actually got undemoted during my playthrough, and I thought it would be very cinematic to save it for last. So after all we've been through with this game, our final act was to simply watch the moon crash and count down to our doom like it's Y2K. And once the cutscene plays, we got our final achievement. And with that, we've officially mastered The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask. It took me 52 hours over the course of 2 months, but the journey is finally over, making this my 40th mastery on Retro Achievements. This game is honestly one of my favorite Zelda games of all time, so I am so glad I finally decided to take on this achievement set, and I had an absolute blast doing it. I also streamed most of this run here on YouTube as well, so if you want to see the full gameplay, you can find all the VODs on the live tab on my channel page. And it was so fun playing this on stream and having you guys teach me some new things along the way. So to everyone who tuned into the streams, I want to give a huge thank you to you guys for keeping me company on this very long journey. If you guys enjoyed the video, likes and comments are very much appreciated. Those engagements really help the channel grow and reach new people. And if this giant 2-hour video wasn't enough juice for you, I've recently participated in an Ocarina of Time GeoGuessr tournament hosted by another Zelda content creator. And I think that video is out now if I timed this right. If not, just check back in a few days. But if it is out, you can find a link to it in the description. So definitely check out that video because I had a ton of fun participating in it. I might have even won the entire thing, or maybe I came in dead last, so check out that video and see for yourself. With all that said, that brings us to the end of the video, gamers. I really hope you all enjoyed it. Thank you all so much for watching and supporting my channel, and I'll see you guys on the next one.